those who are, need to keep their cameras on. And we have an agenda. I think that covers what I need to say. You've all heard it a lot. And we start with a report from Paul, who graciously appears.
I think you have to read this.
No, I read most of it.
Did you?
Yeah. I
Oh,
spoke it.
Oh, okay.
Didn't
You're good.
you? Yeah. It was-
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Okay, so we're in June and we're in the middle of all the activities going on in the park. So I'll just start in the middle of what I think is always exciting, movies under the stars. So, upcoming dates in June for movies in our parks in District 4, Gutenberg Park, June 18th, Penn South Playground, June 25th, Matthews Farm Playground, June 28th. That's a rain date that was rained out from earlier this month. So we have 3 movies coming out this month, and then we send a few more on the course of the summer. We've also had a great deal of volunteer activity. We've had activity at McCaffrey Playground. There were 20 volunteers at May 27. The second group, they came to the fence. They started painting the wrought iron fence, including that tall piece that's there. So the second group will finish up the fence and possibly paint the painting wall. They're coming on June 25th. And tomorrow, there are going to be 20 volunteers at DeWitt Clinton Park to oversee the lawns, which is one of my favorite activities. I don't really see a change in the lawn appearance because I see it all the time, but the people from Hudson River Parks who help coordinate these things, they said that they have seen some very, very gratified. On other special events that are going on, there's some trends people may have noticed. So because of the fields, DeWitt Clinton and Chelsea Park are havens for all the school field days from a variety of age groups who are there. Actually, very active field days. Coming to talk more is Birthday Party Central. There's fully, I don't know, the birthday parties are there, and also Chelsea Green, but CC Moore Bar. That has many kids' birthday parties. And the interesting event that happened on May 28th was a compost event by sanitation. Kind of extent. So those are the events and activities. I'm always obliged to give something of a scaffolding update because we know there's a lot of construction, building, things that have an impact. On our parks when neighbors do work. So one of the news is that the scaffolding is down at Hell's Kitchen Park. There was a press conference on that scaffolding was up because there was a mural being painted on the adjacent building. The mural was finished, the scaffolding is down. There's a press conference with Councilman Botcher on June 2nd. Very, very popular. Actually, it's a very, very nice mural. So we haven't seen much definition stuff. Ramona Ponte, the other scaffolding location. So there's progress going on there now. The contractor has all their permits. They had to deinstall and reinstall the scaffolding. So the playground was closed. Basically, it started this week. It was closed for a day, maybe like a day and a half because of the rain. It started on Monday, but the playground is now open. The scaffolding is up. They still have some tweaking to do, but at the ground level, it's not really effective. So the playground is open, the scaffolding is up, and they are beginning to do their work. So that's hopefully we're going to continue to make progress with this. And third location, Matthews Palmer, scaffolding is still not up because the contractor has to get all the Department of Buildings permits in hand. We don't want them to put the scaffolding up, and they're still waiting to get their building permits. So when they have all of their permits, that scaffolding on for the street side will probably then go up. Okay. Safety report, everybody's favorite. So let's see. So once again, District 4 is very, very safe. We only really had 6 syringes recovered on our staff. I'm actually happy to see 6 because I can't imagine, that there's none. Gotta find something. So during the week of May 17th, there were 3 syringes found in Chelsea Park and 3 found in the Clinton. And that was basically it for the month of May, so 4. Once again, very, very safe parks. And in a little bit of rivalry, I have to say that Highbridge Park is still leading the total board with 380 syringes recovered in the week of May 31st. So when you consider, and there are many other parks also have.
I'm sorry, which park was that?
Highbridge.
Highbridge.
So many other parks, and some have like 61 or 11 or 12. But other parks in other community boards clearly have, far more syringes found as a metric of that kind of measure of safety. Excuse me?
Central Park?
Central, that's interesting. Central is not on this list. And I would imagine that the Conservancy, either they have another entity that collects them for them. I found that in District 5. I asked Brian, so I kind of got on the bandwagon about these syringes because I found the data fascinating. And I know that we report what we collect and find. And Madison Square Park reports to me what they find. But because their staff actually reports it just as my staff reports it to me. But apparently over at Bryant, they have another outside entity that either surveys the park or goes through the park, but it's not reported, to them. So I asked them, what are your numbers? They don't have them. They have this third party entity that captures it for them, but it's not reported to them directly. So a little more digging that I have to do to get that information. But this gives us an idea, even so, in comparison with other districts. So very, very safe. Only 6 syringes recovered in the month of May. And the other part of our safety metric is also summonses that are given out. And I know that there are folks who are concerned. But we had, 2 parking violations tickets in Chelsea Park. Now, one of the concerns is that only the parks that have dedicated PABT details actually get their infractions reported. But since Chelsea Park does not have its own dedicated detail, they're doing patrols and they're catching these infractions, even though they're parking violation, basically probably parked on the sidewalk where they shouldn't be. But they're patrolling and they're catching them. So they are out there, they are keeping the cars safe. So I'm very, very pleased. Let's see, there were just in the entire report for Manhattan South, there were 211 summonses given, a variety of infractions. You can take a look at this if you want. But that's basically my safety recap. Okay, there were some other questions that you had for me last time I was here. And answer the prior questions. I don't have all the answers, but I'm going to see. I'm going to give you the answers that I have so far. So there was a question about spalling concrete at Chelsea Green playground. So there's a work order pending for that. That's been submitted. All of the tradesmen we're in the pre-pools. I mentioned pools are opening. Pools open June 26th. So all of the tradesmen, the blacksmiths, the stonemasons, the painters, they're all working on making sure that the pool's ready to go for June 26th. I did inspect the sidewalk at Chelsea Green, and it is unsightly. Is it a hazard? I don't know, but I can see why the community wants to get it paved over. So we're gonna have them attend to it. So, and the work order says, attend to spalling and bevel for the slight element that's there. So that one's it. Okay. Chelsea Green fence extension will only have to be completed. So there was a community meeting, I believe it was on May 23rd. And it was very, very productive. I was there with Matt Scene. And so the recommendation is to have the blacksmiths fabricate scalloped extensions. So what it does, it will raise the height of the fence, but it's not going to necessarily be that entire piece. But it'll be scaled, there'll be some addition, and it'll also be ornamental and attractive. So there'll be more on that recommendation as we move along. As we know, there's no design for it right now. There was a concept of the design. But I think that that's actually very good achievement to come up with that idea, because some of the things I suggested were two aspects. Yes, and we have even some members of our own community who helped pass the input to the design. So it was very good. Let's see. Success Academy. So there was concern from some of the gardeners over at Hell's Kitchen Playground that the students from Success Academy who use the basketball courts at recess, that they were picking flowers. And okay, I get that it's the problem. One of the things I wanted to say is that this is a common problem in all public landscapes. The botanical gardens complain about it all the time. But I think I mentioned at one time somewhere that at Brooklyn Botanic Garden, they actually had one of their fountains stolen. The woman riding with the dolphin, which I know from my childhood, was stolen. So this kind of theft in public gardens happens all the time. However, it is against the rules in the NYC Parks, and that's the street movement thing. And so I didn't have a chance to call the school, but on one day when I was there on my rounds, I ran into the teachers who were there, and I spoke to one teacher in particular, and I explained, there's complaints about students taking flowers, and please share the rule that students shouldn't do that with your colleagues. So hopefully that problem will decrease and let's see. The marijuana dealer with the whiteboard at from Ponte. I'm not saying I'm impressed by the marketing, but I've never seen this person, but I reported it to them and told them to look out. My staff has also said they haven't seen this. Maybe it's like a one down or two down, and he's out of there. I haven't seen him, but we'll be watching. I'm also hopeful that now there's more activity with the construction, that it won't be a place that will allow that kind of to, hide out and happen. Let's see. Okay, Penn South Playground construction. So I don't know if you're familiar with Capital Tracker. It is a section of the Parks Department website. I have links. I have several links here. I'm going to read with you. So let's see. So update. So bids were solicited in May. You have the bids back. They're being reviewed, and you can monitor the progress of that capital project and others on Capital Tracker. When you go on Capital Tracker, you'll click that piece on the website, and it will give you select your borough, and it will give you a list of all the active capital projects listed alphabetically. And then what you can do is you can click the project in particular, and it will give you an update. So, and I think that's a good way to kind of follow it in real time. There might be a little bit of a lag, because that's to be reported, but that gives you a sense of how it moves out. Okay. Let's see. There was an after meeting question about unusually shaped tree pits. And so my partial answer to this question is there's a website for planting a tree, getting a license to plant a tree, getting permission to plant it. If you're going to do an unusual size, that's been approved. But the standard dimensions are 5 feet by 10 feet. That's the new enlarged, updated tree pit size. So I would expect that any approved tree pit is going to have the same area. Once again, it's all subject to the permit the person applies for and it being approved. So I guess they would have to apply. They'd have to apply for the tree they're going to plant. If it's not planted by the city or by Parks. Let's see. And so the info is at NYC Parks, trees, street tree planting permit directions, and there's a typo in the link. Street tree, 2 typos, sorry. Anyway, but it's on Parks website, you can find information there. Similarly, there's a question about pollen output and algae when selecting varieties for the planting. So my understanding, I took part in the street tree census, gosh, about 10 years ago now. And the movement from the agency has been toward more native varieties of trees. They're better suited to the environment. They support native species, bees, birds, etc. And so they're moving toward that. So I think that is the goal. However, there is an approved tree list that's also on the park's website. So I'm gonna correct the spelling errors on these links so you can see them. If you're advanced, you can just go on the website and just find these things. But the information actually is out there. It's really very impressive how much public information we actually do make available through our website. So I have that there for you. And that other, let's see, yes, the spotted lanternfly. This is also one. What is the agency doing? So most of what we are focusing on, we are accepting the fact that the lanternfly is with us, is here to stay. And so the agency is focusing on education. We're not using chemical controls. People can swish them if they want. So the agency is caring for trees. They're pruning. We're trying to make sure that there's no places for them to nest and to perpetuate themselves. We're encouraging people to help us destroy, look for the egg sacs, the eggs, and destroy them and to kill them. But so it's doing outreach and information, but clearly they're here to stay. We're not going to use chemical pesticide. I use for my but having information and sharing information and reporting the sightings also. The agency is linked into state and federal monitoring agencies that are watching for these invasive insects. And so if you see them, you should report them as well. So that's how we are trying to address that invasive insect. And that's all that I really have at this moment. Be very happy to have your questions for the next meeting. So go ahead.
DeWitt Clinton Park basketball courts. I saw a reel going around on Instagram showing all the different basketball courts all over the city and how there's so many public courts. And when they showed DeWitt Clinton Park, they showed all the cracks. And a lot of comments were, this is the place to roll your ankle when playing basketball.
You need yourself.
Yes.
Okay, so there's two. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So there's two things. Yes, we'll work on the crack at DeWitt.
Multiple cracks.
Yes.
And I know, there's money and they're trying to move up those repairs, but I would prioritize that. There's so many leagues that are playing right now.
Well, that is one of the capital projects coming down. But I'm a little embarrassed. I think as was mentioned before, we haven't gotten improvement on those tracks, but we will work on those tracks.
Great.
David.
Any plan to prioritize trees for street trees that don't shed a lot of pollen?
Well, this is it's so, well, depending on who you ask, people say pollen is a good thing. It's a sign of a healthy tree. That I didn't ask a question like that to make too far. Let me ask a question. Which tree do you know varieties that are particularly problematic
Well, I think you said it last meeting. The London variety, the
lindens?
Yeah, the lindens, yeah. And didn't you say at the last meeting that oaks were particularly an issue?
I don't think so. You're talking to a gardener from the old school. I suffer as I get older. I suffer with allergies as well. So there's a part of me that says that's what goes with it. That's what goes with having having a tree. So if you would like to have a conversation with me offline about varieties that you think are problematic, I'd be very happy to share that information.
Sure, yeah, no, I sent that, I think 2 months ago. There's 3 varieties within the report that I think, you all as a department participated in pretty heavily.
Okay.
What were the three men?
It's the linden and then I can't remember the other.
Linden's one of my favorite trees.
Yeah, it's actually, I mean, it's one of the most popular trees that I planted. And it's not necessarily, I think they're, pollen aside, from my understanding, it's like, there are certain trees that are allergenic, that are high allergenic. That type of pollen actually really affects people with allergies, so I hear what you're saying about, pollen being healthy and good, but there's a certain variety. But it sounded like, I mean, I'm more than happy to send you the report again, but it's very explicit with some clear recommendations. And so really it would just be working that into the criteria of tree selection when we're tree planting and along with all these other things in terms of including native trees and everything else.
Absolutely.
So I can pull it from the report to have the variety.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Yeah, okay. So Ramona Ponte, the pot dealer, there's two of them there. Yeah, now they're partners.
They've gotta be there.
I mean, I get calls from parents from 212, so that it's right after school gets out, they're there. But it's, so we talked to maybe you guys can, and I can send an email to connect with Midtown North, because they are gonna send a special, like 1 or 2 people there. I have the officer's name and number, I can send it to you.
Who's
But yeah, so I think that's going to be handled by NYPD. But I can, just to connect the dots, I can.
absolutely.
I just wanna go back to Penn South Playground, the bids are being reviewed, how long is that process, or you're just anticipating that process?
Let's see, now. Let's see.
There's linden trees up in South Park. Just saying.
Yeah. Not wrong on this. Okay, so, I don't have an answer as to how long the bid review process actually takes.
Okay,
What I will tell you is, from my conversation, I spoke to Max Douglas today, the bids are only received, they won't just received in May. Or not just the early in part of June.
okay. Also, we were talking about sidewalks, in Chelsea Green. Gutenberg playground sidewalks has been on our list for 15, maybe 10 years.
Yeah, and then.
I mean, they don't have a Sally to complain for their
Well, I didn't think-
sidewalks.
And also, it's my understanding that they're gonna be, improved this year.
Oh, really?
Yes,
So we can finally get that off our statement of district needs.
yes.
Oh my gosh, okay, I'm gonna hold that too. So this year, you think that's gonna be,
Yeah, that's normally done as part of in good repair and do it in partnership with DOT. Gets DOT oversees the sidewalks.
okay. Okay, great, so this year we can, second thing, another thing, McCaffrey, did the bike racks, were they moved? I know they were moving east,
So this,
that was like a while.
yes, so there's, you have, Caffrey Gate. So, our bike racks were installed, it's very, very effective, I have some, they're not very, very good pictures, but they show, that's the picture of the volunteers painting the fence, but it shows, the dispersal of the bicycles away from the park. It's not perfect, but it clearly is not what it was before.
Like right where the entrance was.
Right, so that's, they were away from there. However, I will also say that there's far fewer deliveristas in the park these days as well.
Really, with the
Yes.
nice weather, okay.
Yes, so, just want to share that.
Okay.
But last week, DOT actually put in their own bike racks. So they took
Oh,
our
yeah,
bike racks
they've been
away.
going around and putting bike racks everywhere, I got 2 on my block.
Yeah, so, I have.
Wait, right in front again, or no?
Well, that's my concern. They didn't put them, I haven't liked our design, I haven't for our design, but that being, apart from that. I would have put them a little bit more spread out. There are 2 clusters. And, so our goal was to spread them out. They have put them, in a different configuration. I have a contact person on to see if we were able to get them moved. But they changed the bike racks. But nevertheless, the problem with bikes inside the playground is, far less than those.
Not as bad, okay. I mean, that's such a I mean, we went, we looked, and like, I wish DOT, but like, you know, everyone would talk before. Cause we had a long planning of it,
Yes, we're very surprised.
okay.
Does transportation have anything to do with, bike racks, or was that something?
No, they do, but I don't know if these specific, I mean, they could, I think our committee, our transportation committee could request like a specific area, but I don't know if they had anything to do with this particular installation.
On it, and I almost feel like at some point when this whole discussion kind of started with bikes and then the possible delivery step hub thing. That Christine was saying the DOT has the power to just put bike racks wherever they want, and they don't have to consult with the community board.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably true, but you would think in specific areas that are kind of flagged
Problematic,
areas, that there would be some sort of dialogue, especially in a park.
Yeah.
In front of a park, but,
where parks have already installed their own. And
yeah,
now DOT's adding their
yeah,
own.
we can talk to them, we can, yeah. I wanna thank you for opening the gate at Clinton Park. Matt,
Yes, definitely.
right, we're very happy, Matt, my partner in crime on that one, but, how has it been going? I mean, I've heard nothing but good things from, you know, parents and people who play in the ball field. How is your dog situation?
It has not improved.
In the morning, right?
Yeah, the dogs are out there in the morning. Can you put up a sign? That
Yeah,
would
we
be my
asked in
number.
our letter, I don't know if you got the letter
I
yet.
have a letter.
Oh, did it go out?
So there,
Okay,
I have a letter, so there, at the gates that were open, there have always been signs that say no pets.
yeah, but
No,
it's
no.
like, no, it's like part of the list, it doesn't
No,
say
no,
no
no.
dogs allowed.
It says
A
no.
big one?
It is a sign that is roughly, what is it, maybe it's a foot by a foot and a half.
On the
Okay.
new case that's open,
Not on the new,
No,
I have to look and see. On the ones that were open, I made a point of putting signs up that said no please, and no pets. And
but
that's
we would
what,
want the sign on the new gate that's open.
on the new guest, I've had to order some new signs.
Okay, great.
Perfect, that's what it-
sign, nobody pays attention.
No, but at least, cause I was there, I was like, when I was there doing lacrosse, there was a guy with his little dog and it was at night. And he went out, I go, you're not allowed to put dogs, you're not allowed to have dogs here, there's a park right there, and he's like, oh, okay, and he took it, I mean, maybe he knew, maybe he didn't, and he took it, but. I remember looking, and there was no sign, like, no, it might have been on, you know, like when it's a bullet list, it might have been one of those, but just.
It's on the consolidated sign, there are also standalone signs as well, those rules.
Okay, I have one more issue that
Yes.
and it's not our district, but it affects our district. And it is driving parents absolutely bananas. So with soccer and lacrosse, all these field sports vying for field space. We are always forced, when I say forced, because it's a long haul, Randall's Island, to Randall's Island, because it has the most field space, and I know that's in Parks, but I also know it's Randall's Island Alliance, right? The problem is, I mean, we would much rather be at Dover Clinton, but we just don't get the permits for that, you guys send us to Randall's a lot. Can we talk about or have a discussion on when they close the fields, because the minute there's one raindrop, all of Randall's Island grass fields are closed. And like, I can't even tell you how many parents are scrambling with care and like, you know, the practices have to be canceled. And now kids can't practice, and it happens a lot for some reason, and I talked to Randall's Island and they said that, well, if it rains, we don't want the fields, the grass fields to be ruined. I'm like, of course they're gonna be ruined, kids are running up and down. So we can do this offline too, but I want to really address this issue.
You should do it offline, but let me just say this.
Okay.
It's living grass. When it's a dry sunny day, it can withstand. Much more wear and tear from play than when it's wet. Also, when it's wet, play compacts the soil. That makes it so that the air and the water do not percolate through and give you help to move through. So it's very significant, if you play in the rain. That's one of the reasons why, even though people don't like them, that's why synthetic turf is preferred. People can play rain or shine.
Right, I will say this, since we play people in the suburbs in Westchester and Long Island. Those teams are not canceling their fields for rain, so, I mean. I understand you're saying, I mean, we just went through a huge tournament, it was downpouring and the kids were playing. And that's why we're getting beat, because they get better in the rain, we can't practice in it. But anyway, but we're gonna talk, because we're gonna have a big thing with Randall's Island, and I think with Parks as well, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention that we will, offline, we can talk more about that. Thank you, I appreciate it. I think that's it.
Or anything else for Parks? Oh, thank you so much.
Great.
No,
Dismissed.
I'm gonna go back and edit this list and then send it to you, so it's got the correct links for the trees and the cattle trap.
And I sent you an email with the trees saying around.
Yes. Well, before we go to our next group, I didn't mention at the very beginning that we have some new members coming to our committee.
No,
Huh? No, we don't know who they are. It's not official, but we know that there are new members that are coming. And so I presume by next month,
they'll,
we'll have some new folks here, and one of the things that we will do is read them.
Yeah.
I thought they were gonna be here today.
said, and it'll be.
The next
We
item,
had a big party, but it's blocking. And from
where you're gonna buy pizza for us, maybe?
I don't see what happens.
Thank you for this. We have a gallery of
Thanks, Paul.
Hudson River Park, or is it the West End Avenue Park?
Oh, yeah.
Not the West Side Highway.
What is, that is, what is that? Who is behind that? And who
No,
ever
it's
thought
not
it was the
us.
West Side Highway?
It's so nice to have you guys here and gals here. Thank you for coming.
Wait, I would, there's an yeah, can you, cause,
We were talking about that earlier.
were you?
Yeah.
Did anyone ever think it was the West Side Highway? I didn't know.
Apparently there are.
all the time.
Oh,
So, hi, everyone, I'm Noreen Boyle from Hudson River Park Trust, and as Lauren said, we got a gallery of us here to talk about our design process tonight, but since I'll be happy to divert for a second. Yeah, we have always, Hudson River Park has always had a bit of a branding challenge. Been a thing either about here, Chelsea Piers existed before us, Piers existed before us, right? So people sometimes would call the Chelsea section of the park, Chelsea Piers Park, where the carousel is, or Christopher Street Pier, or all kinds of different names. But in the past couple of years especially, if you are on a dating app, for example, or if you are in a running club, you will see that people are calling Hudson River Park the West Side Highway Park. Let's go running in West Side Highway Park. And it is sort of funny, but it's also sort of a challenge for us, because if you want people to be able to advocate for a place, or if you want people to wanna be a board member for our friends organization, or give money, or whatever it is. If you don't know the name of something, you don't know, like, if you call it the wrong thing, corporations don't know how many people are coming to it, you know, they might do somebody else's sponsor, they might not want to sponsor us. So there is a playful campaign that is not the trust campaign, although we are independently funded. And it's basically that on Instagram, not the West Side Highway. So it's fun, follow along, but tell your friends, we're not the West Side Highway.
You know what's funny? I think your branding though is so good. I was just thinking that when I was at the meeting the other night, like the fonts are good, the everything, like the colors are good, like that's so.
Thank you. Yeah, but it's just, I mean, literally ask a 25-year-old what they call somewhere, the West Side.
They're 25, I don't know. No, I'm just kidding.
And I think you will definitely hear from people.
Yeah,
that it's West Side Highway. So it's just sort of interesting. Anyway, hi, thanks for welcoming us back. I'm Noreen Doyle, I'm the president of Hudson River Park, in case people don't know me. And we were here about a year ago, just under a year ago, to introduce our Marnell, which is the lead designer for our 29th 44th Street. We got some early ideas and feedback at that point. We've been busy since then. We've had a couple of big public meetings where we have really tried hard to get outreach beyond the community board, to hear from people about the area that we began focusing on, which is the 39th Street to 44th Street. We said this time last year, but we focused on that area because it's a complicated zone. it's got the ferry terminal, it's got gateway tunnel construction, it's got, a privately owned pier. And this area from Pier 79 to Pier 84, the Ruby Cerro down Pier 84, is the area that is most in Hudson River Parks controlled directly. And it's the area where we can deliver green space fastest free. So this is our rationale for starting in this area. And I'm going to introduce first Tom Adams of the Hudson River Parks Trust staff, who you may know also from, well, he's been here before. He was also the project manager for Pier 90s, that's what down the road for Pier 26 for many of our really beautiful and beloved spaces. So you're in good hands.
So thanks for me. So yes, I'm Tom Adams, Senior Project Manager of the Trust. I'm joined by Jalio Rivera and Dow Tom from Marble Architects and Landscape Architects. So as Noreen said, we were here just a little under a year ago, made a lot of progress since then. I apologize because we had a recent community meeting on May 28th. Some of you were at that meeting, so some of the material you didn't see, you will have seen before. We wanted to give you an overview of our progress to date, what we've talked to the community about, let you know what we heard back from them, and also get your input on the where we are as concept development. So then I'm gonna turn it over to Sean.
All right, thank you so much. Happy to be here again and to show you guys where we are in the process of engaging the community and also like going through our conceptual design process for a segment of this esplanade. Let's go to the next slide if you can. We know that we are looking at an area from as an overall project from 29th Street all the way to 46, but the focus of this presentation and what we've been doing so far with the community is on the north side of the project. So click to the next one. You know us, you know Marvel, you know the team. We're joined by a team of engineers and traffic engineers as well that have been doing a lot of investigations on the site together with us to get to this point. Next. And today we want to, present to you a summary of what we discussed with the community and a community workshop and conversations that we had with you prior as well. Design and program inspirations for this segment of the esplanade that we are focusing on. Our conceptual design ideas and considerations, and then we'll talk about questions. We're open up for questions and discussions with you about the conceptual design. Next slide. And just a summary on where we went. So July 11th, we came here to you and introduce ourselves. January 15th, we had community input meeting, workshop, which was very well attended. And May 28th, a couple of weeks ago, we had our presentation back to the community on, and discussions about where we are with the concept. And we are meeting with agencies to talk about some of the issues and some of the other underlying conditions that we need to be aware of, like DOT, EC and EDC, and etc. And then doing all our site investigations at the same time. Right. Next. Yeah, just to highlight, so we are focusing on the pink areas here. So that's from Pier 79, north of Pier 79, all the way to Pier 84. Next. And how it sits in context, thinking about what is around this area and what is missing and how that segment of the esplanade can support the type of open space that we want and we want to see in that area. Next. A summary of the workshop. We did an intro like we did with you last year. We split into 8 tables with around 8 to 10 people each. We went through an exercise where we asked everyone in the table to give their input on what they liked about the place today, what their concerns were about the place today, and inspirational images and ideas for what they want to see there. It was very engaging. We got a lot of feedback. And if you go to the next slide, I think we have a little bit of a summary of what we collected in these activities. Next.
So.
Next, there's me. Trying to read a post-it note. Next. We divided, for the workshop, we divided the area into 5 zones, sort of to have focused discussions on different parts of the project. You know, from the area that's it was a water play area that's not being used, from the area around the water fountain, it's very well used, the area behind the pavilion or the building that's there, the concession building. The stretch of esplanade between 81 and 83, and the stretch of esplanade between 79 and 81. Next. That's sample of what we collected. Next. We got around 300 written comments, and we tallied them all. Next. So, you know, just a summary of what we heard, right? And this is, you know, we have the detailed list too, but just to give you a flavor of what was said and what the priorities were, right? More green, shade, and seating was a priority. Integration of green and sustainable design practices. Improved access and path organization, right? Right now, this is kind of like a no man's land, you know, you can go everywhere. So a better defined access and path organization, that was a priority. Improving safety, provide space for all park users, so multi-age uses in this area. Topography and park oasis and clear circulation. These are a few of the priorities. Next. We also wanted to sort of quantify or give you a flavor of the descriptors that most people use for this area, what they want to see. So a shaded space, a space that's lush and green, space that's inviting, space that's playful, that's quiet. Whimsical was used a couple of times. Active in some zones, curious, educational, and many others, right? But this good out. Next. And then on May 28th, we recap what the activities that we've done, which is what more or less what I'm doing here today with you. We presented the feedback from the previous workshop, and did a presentation on how all those ideas were translated into a conceptual design plan. And we're going to present that to you today as well. At the end of that, we did have a really great discussion with people in the room. They had a lot of feedback, a lot of positive feedback, a lot of positive ideas and things to think about that maybe were not, you know, considered yet. And you know, we came out of that very, very happy and like very excited about the potential, you know, of, you know, the conceptual design that we have provided. Next. Yeah, let's go to the next one. This is again what's coming in the next slides. Next. All right, so from that workshop, things that stood out for zone 1, which is that underutilized and you know, water play area. Increased green and shade in that area. Think about that space with multi-generational play, a space that can accommodate a variety of park visitors. Education was mentioned, sustainability and innovative design, whimsy and fun. Next slide. And then here are some of the inspirational images that resonated with people about this space, right? So a nature discovery area or an outdoor educational space. The idea of like bringing native vegetation and making that into a native garden. And there are, you know, gathering sort of flexible space, lighting, whimsical lighting installation in this area. Next. Other ideas for that space as well, sort of discovery gardens, stepping boulders, reclaimed tree trunks, sort of nature-inspired sculptural elements, or, you know, stepping stones and sort of discovery area within nature. And we think that that's a program that, you know, in both different generations, it's playful, but it's also nature inspired, and it's a green space. It's not a playground per se, but it's a very playful element. Next. For zone two, so what was familiar with people in this area, you know, reduce the paving extents. It's a very wide open, a lot of paving in this area. Provide variety of seating in this area, increase greening and planting of tree planting. Include a fitness, adult fitness area or a multi-generational play area, and clearly define the esplanade portion, you know, as a passive and active recreational spaces. Let's go to the next slide. So, you know, waterfront seating, as you know, it happens in other areas of the Hudson River Park. Shaded seating areas, seating by planting, flexible seating, you know, the idea of adult fitness equipment. Next. In the area 3, which is the area on the east side of the building, what we heard is, this could potentially be an area that could be activated. It's an underutilized and unwelcoming section of the park. If we can convert extensive paving into green space, we can install green infrastructure such as a rain garden. That was a comment that was repeated a couple of times. Provide quiet, contemplative nature trail, or distinct from get something that's different from the main esplanade. Provide more welcoming social seating, incorporate local history behind this underutilized building, right? So maybe through signage and wayfinding and and kind of interpretive sign ideas. Next. So a couple of images that resonated with people on that. A nature walk. This is a shot of south within Hudson River Park. This is sort of a boardwalk idea within nature. The idea of a rain garden. This is an example of what's done at Cancer Board. Creating a landscape buffer. Sitting within landscape. Again, also lighting installation was important. The next slide. Yeah, so again, more inspirational images for what that rain garden and nature walk area could look like. We want it to be, safe and open, but this is a great area for actually tackling some of the stormwater issues that will happen throughout the site. So this is a great spot to create an educational opportunity and a place that's sort of immersed in nature and that actually functions as a rain garden opportunity. So just examples of what that could look like in different places. Next. Ideas for interpretive signages, certain examples of things that have been done in other parts of Hudson River Park. It could be either along the rail to talk about the environmental history of the site, the nature history of the site, but also maybe the industrial history of the site. And there's different sort of layers of history that could be told through interpretive signage. So some can happen at the Esplanade railing, for example. And if you go to the next page, we can also think about what could happen in that facade of the building. So some of the blank walls and where we have that rain garden area. So
Dr. Shetty, just real quick, we all recognize that area behind the building. Nobody loves that building. It's a blank wall. It's not very welcoming. But what that solid brick wall gives us the opportunity to do is to really highlight local history, and we can work with the community what that would be. Whether it's these are just examples of that's the stories that we tell. It's not an either or decision. I mean, we can tell the story of ecology had a dead end and site history. So it's not an either or. We just think there's a lot of opportunities to tell the story and really make that back of the building a real feature of the park rather than an obstacle.
Thank you. Next. All right, so area 4, which is in between Pier 81 and 83. This is install waterfront esplanade to HRPT standards. What's happening in the rest of the park. increase greening, trees, shade, improve safety and better organize the way the circulation in this area, provide more sitting opportunities, flexible sitting, picnic areas, for both the park users, but also, people that come to visit Circle Line and use the Circle Line facilities in this area, provide fun and whimsy, through incorporation of multi-generational games. Those are things that we heard for this area. Next. So a couple of sample ideas of what that could look like, from the way that we treat the esplanade portion right in front of the water to what potential pocket spaces of that main esplanade could look like as a picnic grove or lounge seating or all age interactive play. Or something that's more artful and that could be done through painting or through other elements. Next. And the last portion is zone 5, which is in between 79 and 81. So this is a wider portion of the esplanade. In the other areas you still have some kind of like vehicular zones that we need to deal with, and they are being studied separately. But in area 5, we have the opportunity for more. So there, people talk about a large green flexible space like a big lawn, or a lot of introduction of more trees and vegetation. So and then the continuation of the esplanade standard along the waterfront. Next. Next. There we go. So a shaded slope lawn, gathering under shade with a grove of trees, immersive garden experience. The idea that you have the esplanade, but then you also have lawn right next to it, like the parts of the park, or tree grove with some hardscape areas for people to sit under the shade. Next. So a summary of what we heard throughout all the 5 zones, right? So just a sample of like inspirational images that are inspiring our concept. On the next pages, we're going to go through how that translated into a design. So let's go to the next. Right, so where do we start, right? So this is the blank canvas, and if you click to the next slide, the first thing that we did was to recognize the main circulation that we wanted to highlight, right? So putting the esplanade closer to the water, right? And creating continuation of what happens in other areas of the esplanade. And then also, identifying what the main circulation will be once you get to the Pier 84 point, which, is a vast area of paving, but clearly defining that as part of the esplanade. Next. The other thing that we had to incorporate is, the conflict of, vehicular and people, the entrances of the 2 piers, and the idea that if we expand that width, then we can have a clear space for people circulation versus cars that may be coming out or entering the piers, right? So we know that this is an area of conflict, so we were trying to gain more space there to actually accommodate all of it in a more comfortable way. Next. Creating a park, right? Turning this from super hardscape into more green and park programming areas, right? So identifying all of that and offering then also the area where people want to be from the traffic noise. Next. And from there, probably now, what are potential zones of flexible programming areas or gathering spaces or the discovery garden, and how that plays out with the rest of the program that already exists. Next. So this is where we are with the concept plan, a very clearly defined esplanade circulation, an area of a flexible lawn space with a buffer planted area that buffers people facing the water from the noise and traffic. The same here, creating buffer planted zones with pull-up spaces that could be for different type of gathering or different types of flexible seating areas, with the contiguous at the front. Identifying these areas in front of the pier, areas where people actually stand and maybe do queuing, so that the esplanade actually like pulls back a little bit. When you get to between Pier 83 and 84, we still have the water feature that's gonna remain, but we're looking at all this vast paving area and transforming that into more open planted areas with more trees, and other types of vegetation. We are looking at that zone as the, maybe the fitness equipment area or the adult fitness equipment area. We are introducing the idea of the rain garden, discovery sort of walk, nature walk, east of the building pavilion. The community garden stays there, the dog run stays there, and this zone here that was the water play area, we're turning it into that discovery play zone that's inspiring nature. Next. So things to discuss, right? Like, you know, and we discussed during the last workshop in the 28th too with the community was, you know, the idea that that's the nature play and the type of inspiration that we're drawing from for that space, right? So, you know, we can talk about like, you know, confirming with you that's the right approach for this space, which, you know, we heard in the 28th, many people being very positive about that. You know, turning, you know, including an outdoor educational element or, you know, sort of nature discovery zone using native vegetation. So that's zone 1. So go to the next one. In zone 2, you know, we had a really great discussion thing last time about, you know, the outdoor fitness area and adult fitness area. And I think, you know, there's people that thought different things, right? Some people that really think that this is needed, and then some people that thought maybe something different could happen. So, you know, again, getting your input and confirmation that this is the right approach for this, and these are all the inspirational images that we have for that area as well. Next. The rain garden is very well received, I think, at that time. I just want to make sure that you also know that we have been thinking about the idea of this space as, you know, open. Yes, a rain garden that captures storm water. It's an educational space. It will feel more welcoming, safe. It's not going to be a jungle where you feel like, you know, you're enclosed. It's actually like low plantings, very similar to rain gardens that we have. The HRPD has done in other parts like Castlebar. So it gives the space a purpose. I think, you know, with the introduction of wayfinding and signage in there and the educational opportunity, it turns it into a destination space that is not just an unused space that's on program. It's actually like a place that you intentionally go and visit, and it actually serves a very important function for the park that we need to fill anyways, which is, you know, capturing the stormwater outside.
And Johnny, just to jump in really quickly, you summed this really well, but we heard very clearly increasing green infrastructure and resiliency. So the rain garden it's a large area. It's a real opportunity not just to capture stormwater from the site, but also the roof of the building.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, it serves multiple features. And we heard very Jadiel, we heard very clearly in that meeting that we need to think about safety and making the area about visibility. So we've been cognizant of that from the beginning. We also have a very attuned, you know, obviously maintenance and horticulture staff who are going to be, you know, provided this is well received. We're going to be working closely with the design to make sure this meets the community. It's not an issue down the road. So we think this could be a really great opportunity in this area.
Next one. Zone discussion for zone 4, which is, you know, a very the decent stretch of esplanade. We have the right esplanade elements right by the water, but we have also this spaces right next to it, right, where we're designating for like different types of gathering areas. So, you know, thinking about, you know, the picnic grove or the lounge sitting area, you know, maybe play areas within that. So we have a game, calling it a games and garden area, and picnic grove over here. This is an area where, you know, when school kids come into, you know, use the Circle Line facilities, you know, they may they may just like gather in some of these areas as well. So we're trying to find a balance between providing spaces for these sort of high traffic moments in time, but also places that the community can actually use and and relax and sit and play, right? Next one, last one, is the area 5, which we have the flexible lawn green space. And kind of like a very open area. So again, seems like it was well received also during the last meeting, and so again, a confirmation that this is the type of space that we want to create and in this quite wide area of the Esplanade itself. Next slide. So a summary of all these areas together, and maybe we can show the list of like, so go to the next one. There's only 1 or 2 slides left in this presentation. Let's go to the next slide.
Taking its time, spinning.
There we go. This is heavy text. But we wanted to actually like just show you the list of things that were mentioned in this meeting on May 28th, right? And the things that we, a lot of these things resonate, and we've been, we will work through, they are either already incorporated in the design, or we'll find, ways to incorporate into the development of the design later phases of the project. And the last one, the last slide is just the time, so maybe we can stop here and open it up for discussions with you.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Always very exciting. I love WPE. I'm sure.
This all looks really cool. I unfortunately was not able to attend any of those, public meetings, but I know last year, I mentioned it because everyone seems like, oh my God, concessions. What is currently happening with that concession building at Pier 84? Is it functional?
Yeah, so Kevin can give you more, Kevin Quinn is our senior VP of design and construction, he can give you more nitty-gritty. But basically, we, after the concessionaire that was there, we mutually came to the departure conclusion. The Hudson River Park did a lot of work to bring the building back up to a kind of a code situation. And Kevin's been overseeing that, so we basically have been doing a lot of work that Kevin can describe, that just kind of to get back to a baseline. So that we can then do a new RFP eventually for a new concession operator. That actually was the topic, and Kevin, why don't I pause for a second?
Well, sure, the building, the previous, those who've been around here for a while know that there's been a restaurant at the north end and a retail type concession at the south end. Neither have been terribly successful in the past. And the concession at the north, is actually designed for 2 spaces, not 1. So through the past year, what we've gone through after the last concessionaire left it, we went through and legalized it with Department of Buildings, so that we have a clean C of O that's ready for the next concessionaire to come in there. We redid a couple of the utilities to make sure that that's clean and ready for the next concessionaire. And at the south end, we discovered that we can fairly easily, depending on what people feel like, that there's water and sewer capabilities at the south end, so that could actually be not a restaurant, but a food type beverage area.
Why not a restaurant?
Well, it depends on what your definition of a restaurant is. A prepared foods would be okay. But a gas range, like a grill, is beyond the scope of what is currently allowed there. It's a whole bunch of fire suppression type devices, grease traps and things that fill.
And that's just on that one side. The
That's-
other side, you can have all of that.
Is correct.
Yeah. So the north side, you can have all that grills.
Yes,
Yeah.
the north area, we're definitely a restaurant, the south area, city bike, other things are affecting the bike business that is there, that is coming to the end of its term. So we have an opportunity, as Kevin said, for Hudson River Park to rethink what would actually be useful there and viable. Separate from this area, I've described, it's challenging to get a good partner concessionaire for parks generally sometimes, and then it's often a seasonal business, right? We have a lot of rules, you know, you're not allowed to play loud music, you know, all kinds of things that are balances between what makes a successful business at a site and what is a successful park setting. So we have been doing this architectural work, and then we are gonna be very careful and cautious about and welcome ideas and back, and especially if people know potential business partners for us for the concession. We want to have, I mean, loud and clear at every single meeting. You all told us that it's important to you that there's a concession back there and like people want food. We want it to be the right experience. So.
Well, I mean, this is just, I mean, I'm a little surprised because that area to me begs a PRI situation.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
It's like, how can we not do
PRI?
I mean, it is one of the most successful places in all the Upper West Side, and it is constantly busy. It's a
And also the frying pan.
So it's
down
not
on
right now, which is
Street.
right. Yeah, so we have to publicly procure, so it'd be great if they'd be interested, I mean, we, yeah, but they have to wanna be interested. It's
Who's
different. A
A
response,
concessionaire.
I mean,
And our hope is when we, when we are presenting a design where it's not just sort of an empty paved plaza in the front of it, but it's a more welcoming green space with a lot more, hopefully drawing more people to that area. It's gonna be more.
I mean, it was popular when it was early, so like that was actually, a lot of local people use that space regularly, and that was. You know, but he didn't respond again when we did public procurement the last round. And we can't force that, so, you
I'm
know,
sure there's some restaurateur, some that would jump at that or not, you don't think?
yeah, we. All of this work that we're doing, including, I think, making the setting for it more attractive, should make someone more interested.
And with that in mind, I know the area in front of that concession was where a lot of tables were. And is that now gonna be converted to green space?
There's still.
Yes.
Or those umbrellas?
That would stay, so that,
Yeah, there are trees in here that are staying, but like, there's the idea is similar to what it is there, you can set up the tables under the trees, so it's
Okay.
positive space.
and with a
Yeah.
large portion of
Yeah.
it basically dedicated to the restaurants.
Yeah,
Okay.
If it wasn't shown in the legend or anything, but like the lighter color trees, just existing trees.
Okay.
yes.
So if it wasn't a PRI situation, or if you did happen to get someone with an extensive menu and the beer gardens, I'm guessing all that green would maybe go away, so you have all this.
No, there's
These
space
are all
between
trees
the
already.
trees.
It's not as, I mean, like
But
PRI goes all the way
those
to
trees
the.
are already there.
Yeah.
Those
And
light green
there are
trees.
trees in a plaza space, so like, so
You're saying that's not gonna be moved?
That's, the trees
Yes,
stay there,
they stay,
you put
and
the tables
tables
around-
under
with
the
the,
tree.
under the.
Yes.
Alright.
There's like, they have lights and trees and, so that would be able to still be there, and then. The trust doesn't make this decision partly based on circulations here, but Paul Hurley also, we let him have like a little bar in this,
Yeah.
and that might be something, if you all are not gonna say yes or something like that, that might be nice too.
I mean, have you tried the blueberry lemonade at PRI?
I
Delicious.
would, well,
Yeah, I agree, I really like this, I like the different amenities, I think it's important that it's inclusive for all ages. My question, and so one is on timing, but my first question is about the vehicle access area. And I'm wondering, just in terms of pedestrians crossing into this new park, I'm sure you're gonna get a lot more foot traffic. What ideas, if any, do you have just to make that as safe as possible for pedestrians getting into it? I know in the past, when we've looked at crossings, like these raised crosswalks have been brought up as a way to both slow down vehicles, raise visibility of pedestrians entering the park. So, yeah, just curious if that's part of this plan and, what you're thinking about.
So I'm gonna let Gabrielle talk in a second, but what I am gonna say is right now, we've sort of grayed this out. This is meant to be grayed out for your review because we aspire to improving that area, but we don't have the design yet. Christine Berthet, actually, who is our board member, but also obviously your board member, one example are there's MTA buses there. There are two lines that end there, which means that they're not just coming in and dropping off, but they're there. And it creates a big wall, sort of. And we're looking at ridership and other things like that. We'll be coming to transportation committee. We'll let you all know when that happens, but you know, we don't get to be the deciders on MTA routes and other things like that, but we can flag issues and opportunities, and there's a lot, I think, Matt, to think about in terms of like what the vehicle mix is there, but then there's some design thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think that in general, maybe this plan is kind of like, you're not seeing the existing conditions behind that, right? But like, we made an effort to, in the conceptual phase right now, in the areas that we have control of fully, right? To really make really clear connections, like more direct and more defined in a way for pedestrians. So like, and then, we still have to work on that vehicle area, for sure, but, having landing areas, more direct landing areas on the Esplanade side, like this circulation here being a little bit more defined actually improves, your landing at that intersection. You don't have to like wonder, where do I go? Like, go this way, no, it's like, you go that way.
And maybe we could go back and forth between the feedback we heard at the May 28th meeting, but what we heard clearly is, we have, thinking about elderly people with mobility needs who are crossing the wide Route 9A, and when they get to the park, having kind of a restful place for them to stop and a welcoming experience. So, we can kind of toggle back and forth, but we heard that. And then also.
Roberta, I'm sorry, not Roberta, Janine, can you please put that back up, the plans?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
Just
Just that one that we were on, the last slide, I believe it was. Thank you.
So we can go back to the bullets, but also, and Johnny, you'll probably speak about this, so it's the pedestrian access into the park, but also going north-south past the piers and trying to create, making that circulation just more logical. Right now, it's a free-for-all. People really don't know where they're supposed to walk. So they're walking into the vehicle access area because there isn't a clear Esplanade.
And creating this sort of planted buffer separation, and right, and you can still have your, sort of loadings or drop-offs, but the circulation that happens on the waterfront is not better defined.
Yeah.
There's like designated areas for different things, right? And there's buffer zones as well.
Yeah. And then just in terms of timing, like, when do you anticipate beginning work and how long do you anticipate?
Yes, well, we're in conceptual design right now, so our hope, we'd love to, hear what you have to say, hope is to go to the Public Design Commission. I don't know if we said this in the beginning, but everything north of Pier 76 is underlying New York City ownership, so it's subject to PDC approval. So our hope is to submit to PDC for conceptual review for this area. Provided we get that, we would then move into schematic design and design development. So, we're kind of all, a big hurdle was just kind of, meeting with all the different stakeholders, figuring out what our site conditions are, kind of getting concurrence on what we can do in this area. And I think Marvel's, now that we kind of, I think, hopefully have a path forward and are eager to jump into more detailed design and bring back to you for review.
We specifically chose this area to start with because we have the most control of this area in the whole spread, so.
And we have, the Circle Line obviously is a value tenant, but they want this area to work better as well. They recognize it's a bit of a free for all right now. It's in everyone's interest that this place feels better, works better, is safer.
Do you have an idea of how long it would take the construction to do this part of the park?
Probably, I would guess, we might break it, we're gonna bring on a construction management firm too, so we may break it into phases. We might start at north, move to the south. I would think, within 2 years from the start of construction, that we would have this done. It's a pretty large area. A lot of it is the logistics of dealing with vehicular access but we would certainly, we could we work this out with our design consultant, with our CM, but maybe start in the areas we really have full control over, like what we're calling the nature play area and the rain garden. And we think we could move really fast in design, into construction in those areas, and give something back to the community sooner than later, and then work out ourselves.
You probably also have to make sure that pedestrian north-south flow continues while we.
Yes,
And
yes,
It's
yes.
not a small problem.
No, so that is,
And certain times of the years, frankly, we're not gonna be able to do the Esplanade here at certain times of the year, probably. It's probably gonna have to be off season.
I'm sorry, so, because in terms of timing and phasing, so are you gonna wait until this is done and then move on?
Oh, sorry.
No, that was a separate question,
No, we don't wanna wait till we finish the construction section before moving on. We are in fact simultaneously, we have begun really complicated discussions, for Pier 78, 79. City Department of Transportation ferries, EDC is involved with ferries, and then there is a private property owner who has 100% full-on private property owner rights. And our desire to widen the sidewalk and everything else to kind of create the semblance of Esplanade through that zone, is with, would be on private property. And so we had positive conversations so far that, I think if it's nicer for people to be in this area, perhaps there's more business. Or, perhaps it's just it's an enticement, not something that owner has to pay for directly either. But, we can't just do it.
and working what we have these existing plazas in north and south of Pier 79 that, try to activate those a little more and bring it in, just have a larger green space. So that's our hope. And a lot of it is, yes, it's a free for all, but it's also when and I've been a pedestrian in that area before I started working there. People just don't know where they're supposed to go. So you have tourists coming, they're just walking in that bus lane, not through any other reason that they don't know where to go. So we're hoping to solve that.
I'm gonna ask you with the circle line, someone mentioned this in one of the public meetings, the queue, how is that, I guess, designated, like?
Well, what we're trying to do is we're not trying to create something that reads as this is circle line queuing. It's we're hoping we're creating a flexible space that, so if people are gonna naturally gather, obviously circle line queuing near period 3. But we also just have people that may arrive 2 hours early, school wants to walk. So that picnic room is a place that kids can enjoy, but it's also for the local community to enjoy.
Yeah.
So we're definitely thinking of that, and we'll be speaking of that.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna be, it's annoying, because I've got one more question, just, there's a city bike station stuff there, where's that gonna be?
Is it right there? I think it's Pier 79.
Yeah. At the ferry.
Yeah, Pier 70 right here. So, city bike station there.
That's apparently one of the busier ones in the city.
Is it really?
Cause it's right by the ferry terminal.
Yeah.
You get off the ferry, you get on the city bike. And are there, plans to maybe potentially have like another city bike space like by Pier 83? Like kind of the edge of that vehicle access area that points up to Pier 83?
We haven't, that's something that we could talk to you about, I think there are pros and cons to that. And I think as we think probably about transportation here, we could layer that in as part of the conversation there. We have a city bike station, south of Pier 40, that's a small station for city bike purposes. But what tends to happen with all the city bike uses is, for obvious reasons, you sort of are getting off your bike, you're coasting, you're still coasting in the area that's supposed to be for pedestrians. Or you're actually getting on your bike in the area that is definitely not supposed to be for bikes, and you're riding it already. And this area already has a lot going on, so I think there are pros and cons as we think about it in this crowded zone.
And for the existing city bike station, we had listening sessions with New York Waterway and the private property owner, and what we heard is, as you probably all are aware, the bikes just kind of ride willy-nilly all through the park. So whatever we do, we're trying to create channelize the bikes so that they go into the bikeway, so they're not riding into the, whatever we want to do with the active roadway, which is being studied right now, we're channeling everyone towards the bike road.
We neglected to mention my favorite statistic, which, what we heard a lot of the concept, workshops is about the ratio of pavement to plants.
Yes.
And so, if we follow through with this concept, we cut the pavement by about 50%. Which is huge, and the tree ratio is off the charts also.
Yeah.
I gotta say, that's my favorite, you guys did such a great job with this, with all the trees and the green, I mean, it's really, it's gonna make it feel bigger, actually.
Oh, yeah.
It's gonna feel so much bigger with all that work. Well, I mean, even if you can't step on it, it's just gonna be so much bigger and better.
Between 79 and 81, I think the existing, right now it's all paved, is 85 feet, is that right? I'm forgetting.
Here's-
By the lawn garden, where you have lawn garden.
Yeah, it's.
I keep looking at your fingers, you're pointing, you're like. You're like, no, it's here. Yeah, so that's a really, which is one reason why we really think this is valuable as a green planted.
Yeah.
Passive seed space,
Was
we
there-
don't have much of that.
Was there talk at one time, I thought there was that long garden area was to be like tennis court, wasn't there like active play in one of those two?
So during the workshops, some people raised, what about tennis courts? More people, Danielle can
Yeah.
speak this more accurately, but more people talked about wanting green. And then we have obviously the current interim pickleball courts, but other courts, further south. I imagine when we have meetings about that area, people will talk again about pickleball, permanent pickleball courts and other things. But people can discuss it for sure, but for us as the park, there's very little other opportunity to create as big a purely green zone as that one block there. So I think we lean more into like, we would recommend sort of green as opposed to a board situation there, but.
Yeah, and it was also the preference from the community, if you weigh in both people that talk about both things, right? Like a lot more people talk about green and lawn and using that area in that more passive way.
And when we did the table exercises, you had scaled
We
cutouts,
did.
just so
We did
people,
have-
sometimes people don't understand what you
Tennis court.
give up for one thing over another, and I think that helps lead the discussion to where we are now.
If you wanted an analogy or a parallel, just to understand it for what it may look like in the end, the idea is basically like the long narrow North Street, just north of Pier 40, where we have the esplanade, we have the grass, slopes up a little bit, and there's a planted buffer to the east. It's a very similar situation.
But we
Very
heard,
similar.
we heard that strongly with it in the summary, just providing that green buffer from 9A.
Other questions? Yeah, 'cause I had some questions, but whatever, I was gonna go back to the committee.
I do too, so you.
Oh, okay, I love like I think it's great that the green areas can be different green areas, like you said, it could be like a native garden or a rock garden or a nature play area, and it's different ways to use greens, but it's all green
Yeah.
spaces, and that's so I think that's wonderful, like to use those spaces, not just be bushes or
Yeah.
green,
Yeah.
but like kids can go in the green,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
people, not just kids.
I'm not gonna repeat that in the question, but that's right on.
Yeah, it's great, so, what was the other thing? I think we talked about everything else, so the outdoor fitness, the adult outdoor fitness, I just. I have some concerns with that, but not necessarily grave concerns. Cause I think if the design is done right, and everything, it's just that it's where it is and, can you,
Yeah, so
especially it's right, is it gonna be right in the sun too?
So for everyone's benefit, there were, what was sort of beautiful from a parks perspective at that last meeting was people were asking really practical questions in part, and like with the sense of like they knew the space and they could imagine themselves in the space and they had operational and other questions like that. So the adult fitness or the fitness was sort of in that game, I would say. People in the room have direct experience with some outdoor fitness parks that don't work. Where for whatever reasons, the way the design is done, the particular equipment done, the way they're done, it's not successful. And, we hear that, and in fact, we would be very willing to do a tour of any place that anybody wants to show us, of like, you hate this doesn't work because. I think the idea sort of is, we do see huge success of it at Gansevoort. We chose very specific equipment that I don't know that, I'm not sure City Parks is allowed to use that equipment or other things like that, so there are, we ourselves will be a tough client as far as what we would choose. But then I also think you can talk about the design kind of sense of it.
Yeah, I think that, you know, it offers the possibility here for, you know, that people talk about like multi-age and like kind of bringing different groups and giving space to different groups. So, you know, we sort of had the nature play area and we thought, okay, well, this is a good spot for actually bringing a different kind of activity. So that's what we were thinking about, that outdoor fitness area. And, you know, we're also in this conceptually right now, right, framing it with vegetation on the other side, right? So you have, you know, a more contained sort of water feature that will remain and will be, you know, highlighted better, for, you know, the kids that will do that, you know, run and play here, but then a more sort of on the side area for the outdoor fitness, to accommodate that program that people asked for. Should that be something different? Could be, and maybe that's something that's
Also flexible in terms of sizing and spacing and shape. We have a lot of flexibility with how, and this is again, it's conceptual.
Yeah.
So if we want
yeah.
increased
like,
rain and less exercise, and that's, we can.
yeah, that's not a program that we will necessarily put like in this area, right? Because like you have the constraint of space and you have all these visitors coming in and like the gathering areas, right? So this is a space that feels like a little bit more on the side, but still, you know,
It's just also,
Yeah.
it's a little, I don't say. A conflict, but it's just in my head, if it is a pure eye, if it does become that. Then you have kids playing right in front, and then it starts becoming a weird, like. You know what I mean, if it is gonna be a beer garden, which
Yeah.
would be great, I don't know if that can be done, but if it could be done, then all of a sudden. It's like a playground in front of the beer garden, I don't know.
Bring kids to.
All the time.
It's like.
Oh,
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the water feature, there's a, not that I'm against the water.
Oh, the water feature just, so that's
That's
existing.
the
Yes, yeah.
But there had previously been a restaurant there with tables under those trees and the water fountain there, and I think they coexist peacefully.
Yeah.
That outdoor fitness space, is that currently where those like couple of steps?
Yeah.
Are?
Yeah, so the steps are, you see this semicircle
Yeah.
area, that's kind of where the steps are.
Yeah,
The stage.
Yeah.
We're like at the bottom part of.
yeah, I mean, that's a space that really doesn't get a lot of use, and also because there's nothing
Yeah.
activated there, you end up people just
Yeah.
loitering on those steps. So having more of a purpose-driven use.
And I like
think
that
might
it's next to the
benefit.
door, I like that it's next to the door,
Yeah.
that it's. like
So we were doing, you know, I mean, this water feature is there, right, and we were, you know, that space was like this big, and like, we're trying to sort of like. You know, contain a little more because, you know, that you give purpose to all these areas that are around that water feature that were very vast and big. And this will be now different in character.
One of the things that we found in Gansevoort is that it's not like a destination exercise yard, it's more of a stop on people's jogging routine, it's part of the circulation through. You don't really have many people going there and camping out and having it do like a muscle beach situation. Flowing through.
It's a difference for Hudson River Park, sort of maybe than like a local.
Yes.
Park,
Yeah.
right, we are such a.
Because you're so removed.
Oriented park, yeah.
Destination park.
And there's a multitude of different manufacturers, we
Yeah.
use NOR equipment, NOORD at Gansevoort. So one of our main criteria, obviously, we need to be maintainable and durable, with no moving parts.
Yeah,
We also wanted it to be aesthetically pleasing, so I think you go, it looks nice as far as play building goes. And it has a variety of, you know, creative uses with it, it's not just one thing, like I've seen the action. One sort of exercise on it, this you can do a variety of things, it's really up to the person, but I was there the other day, and I saw 12 people working out there.
yeah,
I just have
Just in the middle of the day.
two more comments, one, I love the rain garden, that's awesome, like back there to use that space, that'd be great. The one thing I hope you guys put in, seating around the water path, like the water area.
Around the water fountain.
Like the water feature, see, cause if kids with strollers and parents, everyone's just standing, like, if we could have some sort of seating, that would be such a big help. For parents anyway, even not parents, just people who wanna cool down, cause like,
Yeah.
everyone's just standing there and it's tough if you have a lot, you know.
We're gonna look at one thing, we heard pretty clear. A variety of different types of seating,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
the team's gonna be looking at that.
Okay.
Once we're moving into,
That's-
schematic design, we'll.
That would be that, yeah.
We're gonna work through the
Yeah.
things more,
yeah, again, it's conceptual, but like we are
Okay.
considering that too, because we also feel the same way, like. You wanna bring it closer and you wanna have a place where you
Yeah.
can sit and look at, watch your kids run around.
Or just read and not watch the
Yeah,
kids.
or not, yeah.
I don't know,
Opposite way.
yeah, you want your kids.
No children, please.
Oh, sorry. Alright, I'm going.
The non-children have to be all.
Thank you so much for bringing this to us. It's exciting to watch this conception come into focus. And so I'm excited about the whole thing. Thank you a whole lot.
Thank you.
No, seriously. I have two questions, one about stormwater and one about lighting. You're talking about stormwater capture, but you're right on. I need education on this. You're doing stormwater capture because you wanna do a wet garden? You're right on the water. Shouldn't stormwater, most of it be directed into the water?
You have to manage a lot of the water that falls in within the site, so we're working with our civil engineer and like, the requirements for. Going through approvals from the department, that DEP or whatnot, like we need to really consider stormwater. And
That's pretty clear.
Go
I
ahead.
think that, so
Yeah.
right now, all the water that falls on that building's roof
Yeah,
goes into a pipe, it goes into the DEP system.
yeah,
That's disgusting.
Right, so, and that doesn't call DEP, it's stormwater, it's basically clean water, but during a storm event, the whole DEP system short circuits.
Exactly.
And goes to the CSF, so anything that we can do to prevent stormwater from going into that DEP system, we try to do.
Why couldn't that water that falls on this area be directed into the?
And mostly,
It's one thing, a lot of it is.
all of this does, right, that's what generally, it's all slopes, like 84,
But
so
even the
it does
building
go
top.
that stuff.
Well, the shit on the water on the building top.
Well,
It shouldn't be going into a pipe into the North River plant. That's ridiculous.
this is.
That's what we're-
Fixed, fixed.
yeah,
So right now, maybe I didn't get to that part, so we're proposing to change that. And so that the water that would fall on that roof and also on the immediate pavement around it, would get captured into the rain garden and percolated to the ground.
And the rain garden, when it overflows, is directed to the river?
There will be a overflow, which is rarely, against where it's never made it to the overflow. It all perks into the ground. We haven't had, I'm not saying there would be a hurricane event or something for it.
Or once a
And
third.
right, also, I said,
That's,
some of the water that falls off the roof on this side probably does go into the river, but it's like, it wasn't designed. Like, we have a different, that was built 20-something years ago, we have a different sensibility now, we'd like to build a rain garden to make it better.
yeah, because one of the things that I and we've been concerned about in some of the large, not your projects, but the large project in the area is for them to be separating stormwater from sewage. The deck, the Hudson Yards, the
Right.
Gateway, the
yeah,
Port Authority.
NYCHA.
NYCHA, there's so many big things where there's opportunities in our district to separate stormwater from sewage and direct stormwater into a place other than the North River plant. That should be a, I think you're saying. it's-
infiltration, percolation, plant uses of using the water, that's why.
Goes into the river.
So we need to, yeah,
That's so, thank you.
Yes, we're on the same page.
yeah.
I like being on the same page. The second, I think we're on the same page too, but you talked a lot about lighting. We have been concerned with, solar lighting. The Department of the Parks Department doesn't manage lighting, you probably know this. it's the Department of Transportation that does the lighting. And there is at least one experiment downward to south of Pier 40, an experimental, solar lighting array. I haven't seen it. You have an opportunity here to do something.
So we've experimented a lot with solar lighting. So I think the solar lighting project that you're referring to, when Gainesville, when DEC took down sanitation, and there was a lull between when we started our project, it was just the ground area. That, and for security reasons, they had solar powered parking lot lights, basically. And then when we did our Gainesville project, we were strictly people, so we saw those as an opportunity. We took them out of that project and put them down at the yard at 26th Street as an experiment. And then when we did the pickleball court, the interim pickleball court, we didn't use them all at 26th Street, we had extra, so we took the rest of them, put them at the pickleball court. The problem we have with them, and City Parks will tell you the same, is that they're not particularly efficient. We've changed out the batteries many times on them. They don't go on and off at the same time. They're very hard to network. And so what we found to be a better system is what we've done as Chelsea Waterside and Pier 97, where we have large solar arrays we have a net metering agreement with Con Ed, so that during the daytime, when we don't use lighting, we don't use much power either, we harvest all that power and put it into the Con Ed system. And then at night, we pull at a lower rate and we're less energy usage for them too. They give us some energy back to power the lighting. And that way, we, more than that, have to deal with all these lithium batteries and everything maintaining batteries. It's just a more efficient way to basically get at the end result, the same end result.
Translate that to this.
Well, we're not working on this building in this project. But it's something we should think about if there's an opportunity. It may not be in this project specifically, but we can add solar panels elsewhere in the park. We're always looking for opportunities at Pier 40. And we have to look at the park as a whole. It's most easily done when you have a roof that's facing south. We don't really have a great opportunity here, but that's something park wide we can look at.
As I understand it, the solar lights that we were having problems with, that technology is always changing. And it's not my responsibility, it's yours to keep up with that. And as this project develops, you may find technology that works for you.
We're always looking for it. And again, we have the same goals. But the problem that we've had is the batteries.
Yeah, I heard it.
That's always you said that. Pretty toxic.
Yeah, I mean, from a sustainability perspective, harvesting lithium, creating lithium ion batteries, it's not the cleanest and greatest thing to do. But I do like that you're collecting energy from the sun, giving it to the existing grid, and then getting some of it back. And it's less infrastructure for you to have. You just have the panels. And that seems like a bit of a faster solution than having individual single light. That's what it would have been before.
Yeah, that would be nice.
And I think important in terms of power for cars, we get our power from NYC, which nearly all of it is hydroelectric power. So it's through the New York Power Authority that does it. So when we are contributing during the day, particularly in summer peaks, it's when things like the gas meter plants that are in this neighborhood and others would normally be kicking on, and we are helping to offset some of that, I think, power during the day. And then at night, we use power we're learning from the NYC grid. The NYC power is our sourcing, which is almost entirely hydropower. So that is also a sustainable form of power and energy.
Delivered by Con Ed.
Delivered by Con Ed. But it is the power choice and piece of it, but we are under the NYC for it.
And one other point on the subject, which is because we've been thinking a lot about this, generally, all of the lights will be LED lights. We found like Chelsea Waterside where it's LED lights. We study our power usage rate, and the LED lights use so much less power. It's one of the best inventions ever. The cooler, it's better light, and it uses a fraction of the power. So all of this will be LED.
So as you move along in this realm, I'll put it on one of your slides. Thank you.
That's great. It's very exciting.
Did stormwater.
Wait, all of us feel like this community really deserves some true green. It's what we want to do.
What are your plans?
Thank you, Noreen. Thank you.
We know you're a part of it, but that's cool.
I mean, like it's, you waited a long time for this.
Just wait till we get to, Pearson.
One question, like off topic of this, Pier 97, will that concession and restrooms open this summer?
But not the concession.
Okay.
I saw the fence.
Yeah, as long as the
for summer
restrooms are,
stand.
that's good.
Just, I mean, it's all done, we're waiting on our certificate of occupancy from the Department of Buildings, and that is contingent on the fire department coming working in our fire department. So it's all physically done, we just need to.
Sort of the same situation that comes over.
Right.
So what we're open will be the public restrooms and our park, we have a park maintenance area for our staff at the northern part of that. And then the restaurant concession is like, well, as we think about 84, we're also thinking about 97.
The solar panels are actively working.
Okay. I have two off-topic questions, but since you're here, I'm gonna tell you what they are and then you'll deal with them any way you want. We walk by the carousel, periodically. Yeah, and it's mothballed.
Yes,
You lost your, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, there was a provider there who was just lovely and great with kids. He went to Japan every summer, or winter, or whatever he did. So it's mothballed.
so happy that I do have an update on that I was just able to say publicly last week. That party declined to respond to the RFP that we had. In fact, no one responded to the RFP that we had.
Oh, really?
The carousel, no, but I do have a happy ending. The carousel was built as part of the park landscape, it was not built as a money maker. That we don't want people to charge $30 a ride and no one would pay $30 a ride, like it just doesn't make, it's not a profit center. So even though we let people do some birthday parties and things under the shade company, they're just, it's not gonna be enough for like big business for everyone, for just a carousel operator. So our staff members reviewing the concession responses for Chelsea Waterside kiosk realized that one of the respondents for that used to be like 10 years ago, the operator of the carousel. And in our complicated government procurement worlds, because no one responded, it was a failed RFP, and we were allowed, if it's in the park's best interest, to reach out and see whether we could come to a business deal, and so we have. So that too was waiting for inspections by the DOB people that's certified that you're seem to operate the carousel, but probably very soon the carousel will be turning on.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I think it's, even if I don't ride it, it's a lovely, oh, thank you so much.
Sorry, oh yeah, no, yeah.
Sorry, just down to the petitioner for it, that is responding, it's also, we'll have some additional mobile food kind of cart situation, I think it's like a kind of wheeling situation, for food carts and concessions in that area, which we think will also be a benefit to the Pier 62 area. We have those carousel tables at the far western end of there, and so around the carousel, walnut seating and all the pieces sitting, an additional concession area will be there. We know folks like Booster Lane is incredibly popular, but we think some more options there people enjoy, particularly that whole lawn bowl area.
That make it much more active, thank you. The second question is, would you give us a short, we have 2 more topics, update on what's going on with the heliport?
There's nothing new to report. The gateway is going to be
Closing 2 pads.
occupying the southern half of the heliport, and that, is like, I don't know the latest on timing, but, next few months. And they are allowed to, continue operating on the other portion of the heliport.
So you've heard the noise of a lot of people on the board and other places saying close the heliport, and I think in a conversation that you and I had, you virtually said, you didn't say this, but I'm gonna put words in your mouth, that ain't happening.
No, the answer is that I've been doing, as most of you know, Hudson River Park for a very long time. And the position of the state and city, one or the other or both, depending on the governor and the mayor, over the many decades that I've been doing Hudson River Park at this point, is that the heliport is an important transportation use. We have never argued that we need it for money. It does generate money for us, but that is not our argument with respect to the heliport. The city and state have considered it to be an important transportation use. Pier 99 is in the park, that's a marine sanitation use, like, that's the bucket that you need to understand how the state and city, our parents, do the heliport. So I know there are people who say, you'll just close the heliport. Well, it's actually not that simple, and because there are, transportation arguments for why it should be there. Not everyone agrees with those, I get that, but it's a use that has to be seen in a broader public context than just Hudson River Park.
Maybe we have a conversation, because my understanding last year, there was a great deal made about the amendments to the Hudson River Park Trust Act. And how that would prohibit the helipad use of the park, so I'm not sure, so I think we need to get clarity on that. I don't want to take up any more time, but I think maybe as a committee, we take this up, because, yeah, I'm not sure where that.
Last year, I heard, this year 76 month, there was an amendment that, piece of it, and I will say, it's part of the complicated nature of this, because the highlight is that the state legislature has considered multiple times legislation that would mandate exposure, and it has never passed, never got, as far as I'm aware, it's never even going to a committee vote, like, it kept that from never getting on the floor. Last year, when they did consider this, what they ended up doing was to say, if Hudson River Park is to move forward with the RFP for a permanent port operator, we would then have to have all the conditions that we have, including moving it out open water. A 13 amendment, which again, you get rid of it, so we said it had to be over water. We have to do a task force, people involved, community members, heliport industry, others beforehand. So that's what that would be if we were to be moving forward with that piece, which is right now, we have not yet embarked on. Again, it is part of a wider conversation within the city and state. Policy context, local context, there's a lot that goes into it. But now there is, like, the concept is the state legislature and our local legislators have not yet even done that.
So we have to think about whether your suggestion is something we want to pursue or not, because it may not be a useful discussion. I don't
Yeah,
know.
we can talk about flying, see.
All right. I have one more item for you guys, let's see if you have a question.
Yeah, I mean, is this just a matter of people with outsized political power wanting to be able to use it to get around?
I don't think it's just that, because that wasn't, I don't think, the case 25 years ago when I was working on the EIS for the park and people considered it to be an important use. I mean, the city, from that era, the basic users were, you have a corporate meeting in Philadelphia, and the city is a global capital, and there was a sense that people needed to be able to get to their meeting or not. You can consider that, what you just described, or you can consider it why New York City isn't our center. I'm not gonna opine on the philosophy of that, but 25 years ago, there were, that was the perspective on the transportation need for it. The business model has changed since then, for sure, by sharing other things like that. Definitionally, the state and city still consider it to be transportation. That's what I can say.
Thank you. Janine, you can go ahead and take us down. I'm gonna do one quick item I got one last time. I waited so long that
Hold on,
I.
sorry, you're gonna wait more time. Janine, I just wanna confirm that there's no one in the public that wants to, has their hand up or anything?
No, there's no hands up.
No, okay, thank you.
Excellent, so I'm gonna be very, very quick, because I think they're all very familiar, but I have handed out our summer events program. Guide, we have a lot going on. It is, one of the pieces that is part of what we do as part of our mission and process to do, educate for cultural events. We have already kicked off our season, we kicked it off with Submerge, our Marine Science Festival, which took place on year 84, in the district here. We had about 4,500 people come to the public day, which was our most we've ever had. It was amazing, to see that many numbers of the public come out. We had about 1,000 school kids come on the Friday beforehand for field trips, which is also really amazing. It includes the loss of some trips because of the rainstorms that we're going through later in the afternoon. It is one of our proudest festivals. It really handles both marine science activities. We had I think over 35 exhibitors who did it. It was kind of a day. We also kicked off. We have our Health on Hudson series, which is as Marie said, there's sort of a spectacular place for exercise that runs across the entire park. So these are our free workout classes. They stretch from Pier 25 up to Pier 97. There are, we have dance Wednesdays at Pier 97 and yoga Thursdays at Pier 64. We also have paid conditioning further south. One of the things I do want to highlight for this is one of the pieces that we have the Hudson Park has long done, that really goes back to the 90s and the conservative days when folks were really trying to get Waterfront to be seen as what could be a potential for a park to use programming to help activate underutilized spaces or interim spaces to really help lead people back. We have been doing that pretty heavily at 276 to really help bring life to that space and help get people there and help see really the potential for what is the green space. We have a number of programs that are running there right now. That includes our bike skills classes. We're a partner with Bike NYC to do free bike classes for kids and adults. If you have a group or things that you want to take out or a field trip for a daycare center or anything else like that, you can book with them. We have all the information on our website for it. We also have regular recurring classes there. We have our Sunset Salsa series on Pier 76. That is a free salsa classes and dance sessions that run weekly throughout the summer. And we'll be going into the fall. On that one, we see really great turnout and it's peak about 2,500 people week over week dancing on the pier. We also have our Dances Life series, which is a really high energy, Latin inspired hustle that is really free form, high energy, super young, super diverse, super amazing crowd. Who kind of similarly does the dancing man. We have our Barku Festival this August, returning to Pier 76. And then further north, we have Jazz at Pier 84, recurring, you guys know, love it, obviously it's part of the vision here. And then one of our newer series, we have Boardwalk Blues at Pier 97, which is really activating that space. We also have some of our cultural youth pieces this year going on. So downtown, we have our Juneteenth celebration coming up next week. That's the Ladies of Hip Hop. It's a retrospective on Black dance, American Black dance over the years. So it goes back to things from Lindy Hop to modern times. And then we are partnering with the Pop and Juice to do our Pride celebration on Pier 45, which is a really spectacular, high energy DJ event for it. I will also highlight a bunch of our road programs that are going on. So I already talked about our Smurge and Marine Science Festival. We have a number of park tours going on. We have our Big City Fishing event this year. We are expanded. It has expanded. So it's at Pier 25, Pier 51, and also Pier 97 this year. So this is where we park these near playgrounds. Kids can come, adults can come. Free fishing. We'll teach you how to do it. It's catch and release. You don't need to bring anything. Just come and learn. Our educators on hand will teach you about fish and other wildlife that you may encounter. Similarly, you can go to our web applicants at Pier 45, our Pier 40 Research Aquarium. You can come see our tanks, see the fish that we catch, and see some of the research that's live and going on there. This year, and it's not going to be in here, but I will tell you guys about it. We are starting a new program where we're doing our science educators doing pop-up programming at our playgrounds at really peak times of the day to try to help engage kids in the activity of marine science. I'll share some of the other programs we have. Teach people at Sturgeon. They bring out little field experiments for it. So it's kind of a mobile field trip that we are bringing to folks at our playgrounds for it. And then we are bringing this year 3 of our programs under sort of one umbrella, which we're calling Science After Dark. This is our adult programming for learning. So this includes Ask the Scientist, Back to School, and Science Stories. All these are cool interactive ways where adults can come learn about something cool, some science facts. So some of these are scientists telling stories and the foibles of their research. Some of these are kind of lecture series about interesting new research and pieces that are coming out. All of which come with the ticket when you sign up, come with beer. We have a beer sponsor who does it, so people can come enjoy it and hopefully get more involved in STEM. It's really a good series for folks who may not have gotten a lot of the ecological education that's in current today's primary school curriculum, currently in modern day curriculums. If you missed it, this is the opportunity to come back and enjoy and hopefully really learn about how even adults now can be the next version of the stewards so that take their piece. With that, and we'll step off the stage. We're gonna do it. I'm gonna leave you here now.
You talk so fast.
That's a lot of information.
I know.
How do you do that?
Now you have to follow that.
Okay, never, never. So guys, we will, I envision, like kind of what we usually do, a letter about the Esplanade and what we talked about, the points that we, you know, were curious about or we liked, and then, but we could do that later when we go through our agenda items. Anyway, next.
First, and we are hoping to submit to, Public Design Commission, Jan 5, June 27th, if, we would love your,
Before then,
yeah.
okay.
So
So
we don't actually,
it is, you just go to exec.
we don't need a letter, we do need to say that we met with you.
Oh,
And
We've heard your feedback on it.
We wanna hear your feedback, I'm sure.
Okay.
Such appropriate.
I mean, we could definitely get you a letter before, like, let me just, the procedure, we can go through exec, we can do different things.
yeah, but I mean, at later stages, I think we probably need an actual letter, but
Okay.
at this point, we just need to be able to say that we have.
Okay, and we're doing conceptual drafts, there's still plenty of room for every post submission as far as going to take on feedback and incorporate it into the next stages and phases of it.
Yeah, I mean, we're not gonna be detailed in this letter anyway,
And exec is after June 27th.
is it? Oh,
We heard, we had, we heard on the phone, we did, yes, well, I have, some other things.
Yeah, but that's great, thank you.
And you can't say that you got positive feedback, positive verbal feedback from us.
Thank you, I really appreciate that, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Now, come visit us in the summer and up here, make a beer.
Thanks so much
Yeah.
for visiting us.
Thank you, guys.
No, you both.
Okay, so the next thing is, I just wanted to touch upon this because we keep bringing it up, mostly at land use, and housing. But, so there is no mechanism right now. And Matt, maybe you can pull back from your city council days and I don't know, but. So right now, we are going through, this district in particular is going through a lot of, as Marty said earlier, major projects. We have seen our fair share of DEISs recently, when I say recently, I mean, there's NYCHA going on, you know,
This one.
yeah, there's gate.
Sure, the Port Authority, Gateway, and the deck, the no longer casino.
Western Railroad.
Western Rail Yards.
Yes, that's what.
Well, there's also now that we're looking at north of DeWitt Clinton, those two huge developments are going to be kind of we don't know what stage we're in yet, but it will be built. And each time when, at least this committee, but every committee gets the DEIS, you know, a lot of times, or all the time, these projects have to meet certain threshold in order to trigger a mitigation plan, right? So, like, well, if you have X number of units, then, you know, or under X number of units, then we don't have to do X, Y, Z. So we keep seeing, and we mention this when we give our narrative, at least from this committee, be like, you know, yes, you know, NYCHA has this, but we're concerned with NYCHA plus Port Authority plus the cumulative effect of this is happening. And right now, there is nowhere to say, or no study that says in the city or state that says, okay, this district in a very small amount of space is dealing with this, and this. And the reason why I bring it up is I do you can talk about it with anything, you could do air pollution, you could do it with school, like school zoning, seats, whatever, but I'm bringing up the WPE specifically with, the Hudson River estuary, and they're just dumping into the river, like we can have it individually, but I don't know if we would be interested in creating a letter to ask, the DEP and DEC and any other EC, whatever environmental organizations there are, like, how do we address the cumulative effect of everything that is all these new huge developments? I just want to get your thoughts. We don't have to have a letter, we don't have a vote, we could do it another time. I just want to get your thoughts on that.
And
If
the
there are-
impact being, I mean. The agenda item here talks about the Hudson River estuary and waste dumping, so we're talking about their sewage plans and stormwater.
Yeah, that could be, unless there's something else that you're like, this is also an environmental, like, dinger for me, that, you know, or red flag. But yes, it's really to study all these projects in totality, because we never meet, you know, every time we do one of these DEISs, there's never a threshold for mitigation, I shouldn't say never. But, you know, there's the threshold for mitigation. But it's not taking into consideration Port Authority, which is a few blocks up, and that's also going to be, so. Again, my concern was the cumulative effect was not being considered appropriately. Remember I asked the guy.
Yeah,
a minute
the
ago.
writing doesn't know what left is, I mean, it's like
Correct.
with everything, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, I mean, yeah, it's been most brought up as it relates to school seats. Because you have so many additional new units of residential housing being built, but on their own, they don't trigger anything
Any school, right,
about,
right.
but add it all together.
Fire and
Good,
police.
yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I think it's definitely worthwhile to keep discussing how we can sort of add these things up and sort of what that mitigation would look like. I mean, right now, I think a lot of that mitigation when it comes to parks is like open space, right, light and air. And how does that impact the existing open space and green space that we have, and sort of what's gonna be done to mitigate that, whether it's like capital money, like we need X amount of money to go to revitalize, you know, do it, play, whatever park, right? Like usually it's in the form of a check. That a developer will write and say, here's, you know, X amount of money to help improve a park. So I mean, I think we have to decide sort of what the mitigation is best, right, for what we think would have the highest use and value for the community. And sort of what those triggers would be, but I think it's definitely something that.
Work your way through something that you just sort of hinted at. Developer one doesn't trigger whatever it is. Developer two plus developer one does trigger it.
Right,
Do you make developer two pay the mitigation? And what was the responsibility of developer one or developer minus N?
right.
In this, how is the mitigation fairly shared?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything that's like, the only thing that's comparable is on block 675, I think, where Gateway was coming through. And you had two new developments coming in, and there was a large discussion about the EMS station this is 29th Street. And so you had two big projects, and they each contributed funds to, I think, Chelsea Park, actually, I think they each, but it was based off the square footage of the development as to how much they would be contributing. And it's like a formula, it's pretty like straightforward, so one development put in one because they had a smaller building, and the other one had a larger building, and then they work it out based on the square.
But that's an example of two developers occurring
Yes.
at the same
Yes.
time, and you take their cumulative
Yes,
and put it. The issue is much more, that's a simple solution, the issue is much more complicated.
Yeah.
Where's the umbrella? I mean, does that come out of the district council office? I mean.
no, that was through the Euler process, I think that was through Euler. Because they each had to go through a rezoning.
Yeah, but I guess, again, what I cannot know, this is all in one community that we're
Right.
specifically talking about, so where's this?
Yeah, you have to think about boundaries,
Yeah,
who's
yeah, I mean-
impacted, yeah,
So,
it's the whole
who's the
community board.
answer? Community board?
I'm not sure, I don't know, I'm not sure how this has been. Yeah.
Up till now, I go to you next, up till now, we've heard enough, you just sort of said that in your introduction. we've heard, I've heard for as long as I've been on the community board, well, we don't look at cumulative. Right, and that's not our problem. Right, well, it actually should be, but I don't know how to solve the problem, that's why I asked you the question I asked.
Yeah.
And you didn't have an answer.
No, because I don't think it's really been done. I don't think there's anything like this in terms of looking at it.
Nobody's
The
talking about it.
community wide sort of, because it's not sort of, if you're. You know, in the northern part of the district, and we have a large district, right, like the Hell's Kitchen. Community has different needs than the Chelsea community, and each block has different needs, and I think, so it's been very much sort of. Isolated in some ways, and so looking at it in a broader way.
But they all
it's done.
contribute to the need for full seats.
Yeah, and so, but is the same true for open space, cause there might be more open space in Chelsea, I don't know, like, how do you, it's
I
like.
think I brought it up only, I think I brought it up only because. Just to write not that we have to, just to write an initial letter saying. Environmentally, open space also, but environmentally, how are we measuring the cumulative effect?
Who do you ask?
DEP, or whatever the agencies are. To say, what is the mechanism that, shouldn't you be considering the cumulative effect, or, anyway, go ahead.
I think, your thoughts about it seem to be more in the, what can developers give us to help the community? But I think considering City of Yes has passed, considering there's this huge push to build more and more housing, we need to talk about infrastructure. This is a much broader issue. Our city's infrastructure is very old and it's aging. The sewer systems, like if we want to prevent the combined sewage overflows, if you're putting in tens of thousands of apartments, the showers, the toilets, the washer dryers, all this stuff is adding more strain onto our infrastructure. The city can't say, let's build all this housing without creating a plan for how to improve the infrastructure to support that housing. And that's not just like the physical infrastructure, it's fire, police, sanitation, schools, all these things that need to be thought about. So when I think of the cumulative impact study, I'm thinking more of, when we're doing this development, how is it gonna impact the broader balance of the city? Not like, oh, hey, you're building a thing across from DeWitt Clinton Park, give us money to fix the basketball court kind of thing. That has to be done regardless. This, I think, is something larger, and because our district just so happens to have a ton of projects happening, we, as always, are the ones dealing with it first. But I think this would be something that would have to be a citywide thing at some point, like.
But I think I was narrowing it, yes, I was narrowing it down just to the effects on the Hudson River, just what is in all purpose.
Which would be the stormwater, how to deal with sewage.
Sewage, which is what you were saying,
Yeah.
like, so what is the cumulative impacts or effects on one single property, the property being the Hudson River here, or the estuary here? There's no place for us to write that, like, when we write our contribution to DEISs, we say we're concerned, and they're like, well, it doesn't match, it doesn't meet a threshold of impacting the Hudson River. And then we go to the next one, well, this doesn't meet the threshold of impacting,
what is that?
so we go down, but wait, but this plus this plus this plus this does meet it has to be.
Yeah, so would that be
So-
something that there would be a legislative solution to, of saying we need to look at the
That's a good
cumulative
question.
impact and look at, these are how many things have been built over the last 10 years, what's projected to be built, and how all of that stuff is going to impact the existing infrastructure, and then ensure that, the new projects that are coming up are helping to pay for upgrading all of that infrastructure that's needed to support, because what's the point of having a giant tower if you don't have, the sanitation and all the stuff to support that, and then you end up creating a larger issue when we just have sewage in the river all the time.
So do you want to, we could write a letter to the environmental agencies if we, Roberta, I'm sorry, go ahead, thank you very much.
So I did want to ask, have we inquired or met with DEP or DEC to ask them about their ability to measure this, or to what extent they measure this? Do we have any information about what data is available?
I think that is a great, that would be a question in our letter. What is do you have a measurement for this? You mean you're asking if we should ask them informally and not in a letter first, or we
Maybe,
should?
maybe ask them to have a presentation.
So we could, I'm thinking like, I'm not saying that we shouldn't eventually write a letter, but I am wondering, do they do something of this nature? Do they track something like this? And would they be open to either meeting with some members of the board or presenting at a committee meeting to talk about how they measure this? Because if the answer is the city's doing something, I would love to know.
Yeah, and then I think that would just only help inform how we would move forward with the letter.
So do you want, Marty and I, we can, with Janine, we can explore either, if it's not a presentation, we can just see if there are any safeguards, mechanisms, or any. I was under the impression in talking to our land use people that there weren't. That there weren't, like that's the problem, that they were not taking into all these projects, the DEP or the DC cumulatively. So
That's my impression too.
so that, I mean, I could ask again, Roberta, I can definitely do a little more research for sure.
Well, I think.
I mean, it's that,
Go ahead.
but I think part of the problem with the environmental impact statements is they are, those are legislatively mandated, and you have to go through a particular process for each project, and it meets all the requirements in a technical handbook, and that is simply not what that process is designed to do. And that's, I mean, I think Katie's point was, is there a legislative solution? Maybe, and there may be an opportunity to talk about this a little bit in the context of the charter, because there is some discussion on more comprehensive planning. But I mean, if the question is that what the EIS does? No, but is there an alternative, or is there something the agency measures that could help get us closer to something comprehensive? Maybe, and I just don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
What you just said is that the EIS is already legislatively designed. The secret manual and all that crap. So to change that would require legislation. And the question is, how many of our legislators are even thinking about this?
But that's why I brought it up. I think this is a red flag for us saying, this is the mechanism now. This is what is the procedure now. This is how it goes, and this one individual project gets looked at and then it goes on. The next one, I was saying that we have to ask at least the environmental aspect question of, we should be looking at the cumulative. I don't know if it's legislative or not, I don't know what the answer is. I'm just saying that we should just raise the issue that the cumulative is what is the reality.
Yeah, and I think,
Is the issue with them.
DEP,
DC, we could go like it.
Is it worth a conversation just with Brad or Tony on this?
I would rather get it from the agencies to know what they're doing, because I don't think our legislators necessarily have that information. I would wanna know from the actual agency that oversees it, how they're doing it, because they're the experts in those fields. But, the EIS is building specific, so it might not be about changing the EIS. It might be about creating something that specifically deals with cumulative impact. And it's only triggered by, you have X number of square footage of buildings going up in this one particular area. And because that's happening, now you have to do this extra thing. Cause it might not apply in all situations. If you have like one building project going on in one area that's, a low density, it might not be an issue, but for us, we have a lot of projects and we're only gonna have more with these, building up past 11th Avenue. So having something that's separate from the EIS, that maybe runs parallel and says, okay, because you're building at this time with all this other stuff, now you have to do an extra cumulative thing. And I know it's an extra hurdle, but it's important, because what's the point of building all this housing if the infrastructure is not about?
Right.
I should add, just there is a additional process required on top of the state's secret law. It was signed in, I believe, 2022. It's called the Environmental Justice Citing Law, and it does require the consideration of different impacts and existing pollution burdens on what are termed disadvantaged communities, but that includes much of CB4. So that is, and I don't know what that has looked like, that state law and the implementation of it for our projects, but it might be worth inquiring with DEC and seeing, why aren't we getting the more information on this? Because there is a statute.
I remember when the Gateway folks came, they had talked about how, in terms of the monitoring through the process, that they were gonna do that through the, I don't know, how many year process. But what's not clear to me is like, so if they surpass a certain level of toxic pollution to the marine life or to our river, like, what then? Like, what happened?
What's the mitigation? What is the
Yeah, I guess that's not so
I
clear.
think they would be responsible for cleaning it, like when there was that Con Ed oil spill,
Yeah.
the state came out and Con Ed had to clean it up.
Yeah,
We asked them a question at the time, you'll probably remember, and they gave a sort of we'll fix it answer, which was
Yeah.
unsatisfactory.
Yes. So I don't know, I mean, they're gonna actually be in the river, so they will be, like monitoring, and they will feel the effects of all of these projects going into the sewage system, actually, so they'll be the, I guess, seeing. But the other thing that I really care about as a resident here is the air pollution, actually, from all the construction that is gonna be going on. And I don't know who would be measuring that. It's just like we share the air with.
but again, you're right, I mean, that is in DEIS, a solo DEIS, they might not have, pass the threshold. But then if you're having, Gateway, then you're having a few blocks north, you're having Port Authority, then a few blocks north, you're having this other, or night shows over here, then obviously cumulatively. Anyway.
So is the first step to write an administrative letter to DEP saying, what are you doing?
Yeah, I think an administrative, but I don't think it has, we have to vote or fill, I think we do in more like a fact finding.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Okay,
And I would also, I mean, if we're gonna do that, I would copy a similar letter to DEC, so we know both what the state and city are doing in that respect.
okay,
And the agency that's really looking at a lot of this stuff, it depends on the type of project and what the new building is, but the Department of City Planning is reviewing, and the environmental studies that are coming in by the consultants or the developers, and they're reviewing that to make sure that, they're checking all those things. So anyway, I think DCP is also, they're really sort of the leading agency on this,
DCP,
yeah.
okay.
So we're writing a inquiry letter, probably not copying the three, just writing individual letters to the three. No,
Right.
it could be the same letter,
Yeah.
but they don't have to.
Yeah, tailored.
PEC doesn't have to know that
Yeah.
DEP got a letter.
Yeah, I think you keep, I don't know.
Thanks, Roberta.
Do it, but. Since we leave them all.
Okay,
Sounds like a starting point.
all in favor? Any opposed? Abstain? Present not eligible? No. We can do administrative, I don't even know we had to vote on the administrative, so I do think it's an exercise in voting, I guess.
Yes.
For practice.
Wait, to see if you can put your
Yeah.
hand up.
Yeah. Okay, the last,
Thank you for thinking about it.
oh,
I mean, it's a big deal,
You're welcome.
it's just bringing it up, to bring it to everybody's attention is really important.
yeah, so let's do the first step, and let's see what they say, and then
Yeah.
let's see how they respond. So the next thing, and I'm glad Roberta's on for this, because, just so you guys know, I sent, everyone an email on the review of New York City, New York City Charter Revision Report. There's a few things that they studied, and they are looking to, I shouldn't say looking to change, but they are seeing if there should be a change. And actually, you know what, Roberta, I did not tell you about this beforehand, but since you're on, Roberta, I gotta say, did the heavy lifting on this. And as I said in the email, 90% of these questions are going to housing or land use or something like that, and housing. HHHS did talk about this stuff in their meeting, and I think they came to some conclusions or some opinions. And I believe, Roberta, they're drafting a letter and they're waiting for our input on our sections, or is that it? Or
I
am wrong?
am compiling a letter from all of the committee's feedback. So and obviously Joe and Co have put together a lot of that already.
Okay, so I had, what I sent around, it was really just a cut and paste of Roberta's, work. As far as the climate section was concerned, it was maybe 7 to 10 bullet points. She really synthesized all this information amazingly, so we didn't have to read all this stuff. But, though it is interesting reading, that touched upon the WPE segments of it. So, you know what, Roberta, why don't I hand it to you? Do you have my email, right? Just the bullet points that I kind of just cut and paste from you as far as,
Well, she had a whole document.
Under
She
climate.
showed us that.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I
Yeah.
just did the climate part, the other ones.
I
Joe,
assume- Yes, there is the climate, we can go through the climate bullet points. What I will note, and what I think we touched on in Housing, Health, and Human Services is this need to talk about cumulative impacts of these various projects. And I'm going to take the liberty of sort of adding the conversation that we just had to the letter. Unless the committee has some problem with that. I think we've had the conversation. It was very productive and helpful.
Yeah.
And we'll
also,
reflect that in the letter.
Roberta, we have talked about
Yeah.
that before. I mean, that's not, we were on record, I think,
Yeah.
also in.
Yeah.
When we give to our DEIs on other projects, saying we have other projects, so
Yeah.
I think you're pretty in a safe zone there. But if you could go down the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points, starting with should the city be able to correct inaccuracies in the city map without triggering, excuse me, an ordinary ULURP. If you could just explain, we'll kind of talk about each one. But you can just give us a little overview on what that means as far as environmental.
Sure. So the city has something called the city map. It is decentralized and maintained by each of the borough president's offices. They effectively have a map maker or cartographer that maintains a map, the official map of each borough. And sometimes it appears, this is based on testimony to the commissioners, that when either the city or it could be a third party are going in to perform, various resiliency measures, that they have found inaccuracies in the city map that procedurally for the charter must be corrected via the ULURP process. Now, if there's already a land use process moving forward, I don't think that is particularly taxing. But if it is a situation where you are not otherwise going to have a land use review process, then you are potentially adding 180 days as well as an additional expense when you have a de minimis correction. And I think the question is it appropriate to let the city make a very de minimis correction in order to specifically for climate and or resiliency purposes, but to make these de minimis changes when they find them without going through a full 180-day public review process.
Roberta, could you give like a rough example of what that means?
That is. No, it's a great question. And one that I don't know if they provided a very concrete example. Okay, so here is, let's say there is
But I think I'm sorry, if I can just on that
Sure.
one, I think I looked at your page 80 for that particular one, and I think the reason why it's coming to us, that line or that question that Roberta highlighted, is so that this point is raised, and I wrote this down, I'm gonna read on my notes. This point is raised in the context of correcting, and Roberta, correct me if I'm wrong, correcting inaccuracies along waterfronts and coastlines that would lead to costly delays in coastal resiliency projects. So if the city needs to acquire a small piece of land along the coast to proceed with a coastal resiliency project, that currently that would trigger a ULURP. Is that right, Roberta?
So that is right in, it is right in that it is correct. And it also gets at a different question, which relates to the acquisition of property, like a de minimis amount of property. But the part that is correct is that, these were often industrial waterfronts and there wasn't a great mapping process for them. And as they've deindustrialized and as the city has gotten, better at cartography, they're finding these errors and there may be a need to correct the city map. Maybe there is like a street that is, a few hundred feet in the wrong direction on the map and you need to correct
Yeah.
that would be an example.
Why would that
Because two
trigger?
things are different,
Yeah, why would that trigger?
because you have to change the map, and if you wanna change the city map, you have to do
Right.
yours, like the 33rd Street thing. But
I guess.
the whole thing about acquiring a piece of land seems very different than
That-
fixing in a
A
map
map that's inaccurate.
of
Right.
an existing structure, so I don't know if they put these two things together in the same recommendation, but I would think these have to be completely separated. I have no problem if they find out that the map is inaccurate to actual real life conditions and they have to change it. It's a whole nother thing if they're like, oh, well, we're just gonna buy this random piece of land and not tell anybody or do anything what, is going on. That's a different type of situation to me.
I want to, just so we're clear, those two are separate recommendations.
Okay.
And it is a later bullet. So it is the second from the bottom. I believe it says, should the city be able to acquire land for coastal resilience infrastructure without going through an ordinary ULURP? And when we say ordinary ULURP, we're not saying, should there be no public review? The question is, for if you are talking about an access or an easement of a couple of meters, should that require the 180-day public review process? And the answer might be yes, right? That's an opinion of the committee, but the question is also, if there are compelling public purposes and it is of a de minimis size, are there any scenarios in which it would be appropriate to allow the city to do this with a streamlined public review process? And that's a question for the committee.
So are we comfortable in saying what Katie said? If it is a true correction of an inaccuracy in a map, we don't think it triggered a ULURP process. But
Yeah.
if it happens to be an inaccuracy of a map that leads to or some sort of,
But hold on, Leslie, I think you were just reading that page wrong. Cause
I could have
is that sub bullet under this first one, your insertion into Roberta's?
It was on page 80.
Yeah, so it's super.
No, I'm talking about like the email you sent. There's a sub bullet that says this point is raised in the context of
Yes,
correcting,
that's
you added that.
Yes,
So,
on page 80 of the actual.
but I think there's multiple things on page 80, and I
So
don't
it's
think
not
that
one
this
together.
relates to that. I think the whole changing the map is different from the acquiring
Gotcha.
land. They're not talking about acquiring land and then changing the map.
That's another bullet point.
Yeah, the changing the map thing
Right,
is
Roberta?
one thing.
Okay,
The acquiring the land has nothing to do with the map.
so we'll
right?
separate it in our comments, Roberta.
Yeah, I think
Obviously very specific to
Yeah,
changing
the
the
map-
map.
the map thing is its own thing and the acquiring land and ULURP is a completely separate topic. And just as we talked about in triple HS, the definitions of what a small amount, like, how do you quantify that? What does that mean?
Okay. You're talking about as far as,
If they want
Correcting
to buy
an
a small,
inaccuracy.
no,
or buying the other points?
Yes.
Okay, let's
I
stick to
think-
the first one, the
Okay.
inaccuracy, I think we're good at.
yeah, I think we all agree.
Do we
fix
all
the
agree
map.
that's okay? No? Right, yes?
Well, I have a question. I mean, how bad could an inaccuracy be? And do the maps include like what the zoning district is?
It's a good question. And I think to the point of, definitions, it's worth asking. But I think that they're really talking about if you're a few feet off on a street, or a few feet off on where the property line is for, a waterfront area. I think if we're talking about, it is possible that there are instances in which that, like, part of that land is in the wrong zoning district. The park is zoned in one way, and then the other side of the street is zoned in a, like, for a different use. And so it is possible that that would involve zoning specific corrections. Obviously, if that's a concern, certainly worth raising.
But I think if the zoning map shows one side of the street is this and the other side of the street is this, and the city map shows that the street is like a few feet off, it doesn't change the zoning district. It just changes the placement of the street. So I think when it comes to the city map and just making sure that it accurately reflects real life conditions, not changing any zoning or anything else, just making sure that all the features are where they actually are. I think that's fine.
Yeah, that would seem to be a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the reason why it's coming to our committee, Roberta, right, is that this is, or I guess we're talking specific to coastlines and waterfronts on this one, right? Or no?
Yeah,
It-
because they
it
don't.
is.
If the coast. Isn't that if the coastline is not mapped correctly, then when, like, the Army Corps of Engineers wants to do a project and the map's not right, it's gonna cost them time and money to fix it. That seems to be what it would be.
And I think this came up, this is a question that is being asked more broadly outside of the climate specific context, but it was mentioned in the section, the Charter Revision Commission report, because it was, I believe there was testimony that effectively said this was a hindrance to these types of coastal resiliency projects. And so, and those testimonies are all available on the Charter Revision Commission website, but a lot of them.
So before we move on, Roberta, to the next point, you're taking these notes down, obviously, and we can all vote on what the contributions are to this letter that Roberta is unbelievably undertaking. But you don't need us to put it in writing for you, do you?
I don't believe so. I mean, we have the transcript, and there will be, a draft available, and there will be a public discussion at exec. So if there are concerns or additions, there will be a process for adding them. My goal is just to capture the discussion, even if there are multiple sides of the discussion or questions and not definitive opinions, from this meeting. It is not to, make any one particular point.
Okay, great. What's the next? Go ahead, Roberta, you can go to the next one. You can do.
Sure.
It's grade changes, the raising the road to the street beds trigger an ordinary ULURP.
I mean, my understanding, or the understanding of this one, based on what the report ultimately said, was there are situations in which there is a desire to change the grading of the road or the street bed for a project, and because that is additional and land use undertaking, if you're not already undertaking a land use action, then you might not do this at all, even when it might be beneficial. I don't think that there are any clear sort of downsides to having at least an easier path to allowing a certain amount of street bed raising for resiliency. I don't think I've heard any complaints to that point, but that would be the purpose of this.
I mean, I would tend to agree. I mean, that's just reality, that things have to be raised. It's not really necessarily.
Yeah, I would like.
Public review.
I think it's just quantifying though what they mean by little. Like, it's one thing if they need to raise it like, 6 inches.
Like a hill, yeah.
It's another thing when, West Related was suggesting completely raising 33rd Street like 12 feet.
Yeah.
That's entirely different. So it's all comes down to the specific detail, which has not really been fully fleshed out yet.
Great. Roberta, you got that? You got that?
Yes. And I think that it's a great point, and, something in the realm of, inches to like lower than a foot, or I don't know if we even have desire to put numbers on that, but yeah.
I mean, I read HHHS's, I guess.
Yeah, everything
But
is,
they did
we want
the same thing, it's
definitions.
definitions, but it's very like,
It's
raising,
vague.
how big, what is raising, that's very vague. Okay, so that's good, so I guess, are we all in agreement to that? No, you look for raising a bed,
Yes.
street bed a few inches, but again.
Well, it doesn't say no ULURP, it says not the ordinary ULURP.
Or not
So
ordinary or
it's
public.
like ULURP Express.
It is It's like the drive-through window of you,
ULURP Plus.
Okay, next, should a change in use for critical resilience infrastructure or building new public space require a ULURP for a change in use? I mean, this is where.
I feel like I need an example to
Well, this,
understand.
I mean, yeah, this is where I think we're going into like, yes, we still, just because it's for resilience, if you're gonna buy, if you're gonna do something, you still need a ULURP. Like, we understand this, we don't wanna hinder anybody with the raising of the beds or the map, but if you are going, the city.
I mean, could this be like the wall that they were proposing along the?
Exactly, right, like.
Yeah, we would definitely wanna use something like that, yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's changing, I agree, I think ULIP would be, I mean, I think it would be good in this case. I mean, if you just think about like an example, switching like a sanitation garage to a police station, right? Like, you would want a review process, a public review process for something like that.
The effects.
So yeah, I think it's worthwhile to understand potential impacts, but at the same time, I understand why the city would wanna try to streamline it, but I still think, something major like that should trigger, still.
Agree. Does everyone agree? We all agree in the room, Roberta, on what?
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is just a question. Is there any, like, is the desire that it have the ULURP process that presently exists or some form of a public review process? Like, is there interest in any sort of streamlining of the public review process for this particular type of infrastructure?
That's hard because we don't know, it
An
could be,
example, yeah.
it could be like a big thing, like changing a school
Well,
or, I mean,
I think,
Okay.
I think the difference here is critical resilience infrastructure. We would definitely want overview on that change, because what does that mean?
but now
Does that
that
mean
is what they're
building
taking
walls?
away.
Does that mean, yeah.
It could be what it is used for now.
But the other thing about building new public space. I mean, I kind of feel like that might be okay to have a streamlined process if they wanna create, because when we say public space, are we talking like open space, park space?
But what's there to begin with, right?
That's what, yeah, that's
Is
what
it-
I'm worried
Is it a
about.
school?
Yes,
I don't
is it a
know.
school?
We
Is it a-
We should understand what the current use of that public space is.
Yes, right now,
What the alternative is.
yeah. Not like what it's for, but what they're gonna change it from.
I guess with that, then we would wanna maybe
Full use-
categorize specific
full-
uses that we would be okay with, but.
I would say full use. I think a change, if you're gonna change a site, a use.
Yeah, I think getting into a conversation about changing a public review process is separate from what
Yeah.
we're able to sort of
Do
give.
here right
This is
now.
helpful though, because this helps us understand that the concerns, the desire for full ULURP relate to both like the size of the project and then the purpose. And that those are where the concerns are coming from and specifically. So I appreciate the answer to the question. There is
Yeah.
a question about, assuming there's no additional input here. There's a question of voluntary.
I think we were, again, please.
I apologize.
No, I think we were in, agreement, in agreement of that it should go, you just err on the side of, public review is always err on the side of caution, right? Yes, we wanna, streamline things, but I don't know, for that one, Roberta, maybe, we think ULURP is the best avenue right now, just to, as I say, anyway. All right, go ahead, sorry.
Just
Oh,
a
Ella,
question, just in terms of like. ULURP is 180 days, or is the presumption or assumption that we're working with, but is there nothing else? Like, I felt like it was, what was hard to read about this particular thing was, it was like. ULURPs are holding us back from actually, being more responsive to the needs of our community. And it's basically bureaucracy that isn't helpful at all, but is there something between like nothing and ULURP? Like, and I think I appreciate, Roberta, you mentioning, well, there's that public review process, but is there, like, even that to me sounds a little vague, like, what is I think what we like about the ULURP is that there is a yay or nay factor to it, right? Versus a public review process is, let me just give you visibility.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's, so I guess we need a few more options here to say, like, this is where public participation or public right of refusal is important for us.
And I also don't think ULURP is a bad thing, especially for these big projects. I mean, listen, the city's not gonna do anything, the city can't get it done in 15 years. They're worried about 180 days. I mean, like, you know, or the state, I just think, especially for some of these big, maybe the smaller ones, like raising a road bed, obviously. Then we can all agree, we don't need a, and also, isn't there another question when I was looking through, Roberta, that said to combine the community board and the borough president? So it's not,
Yeah,
it's run concurrently.
we recommended, I think we recommended not to do that.
To
There
go one
wasn't
and-
like
No, I
a
think-
solid recommendation, but it was not supportive of it. And it
Yeah.
noted some of the pros and the cons, I think we went through but we don't recommend it per se.
I mean, I understand why this administration is saying, you know, ULURP is not, like, as you characterize it, they're not saying ULURP is not good, but as you said, we want to speed your process. But checks and balances are here for a reason, and, you know, I just think it's
Tell that to President Trump.
to be careful. So anyway, you got that last one, right, Roberta, I think? At least some
Yeah,
of the
No,
comments. Okay,
appreciate the discussion.
thank you. The next one is, should the city be able to offer voluntary buyouts of homes in flood-prone areas without going through an ordinary ULURP?
Before we get on this one, and we may decide we don't want to opine here, what the city is really talking about is one, areas in which buyouts are being considered. And I think it is unlikely that buyouts would be considered in this area of Manhattan where there is a compelling interest to prevent, I guess, massive flooding and then to promote then managed retreat. Like you would not envision that here. But the other sort of issue that they wind up seeing is they're having to do these ULURPs for individual lots for individual, generally single family homes. And that's hindering the buyouts. And we can say, oh, well, seems it would be good if you could do this faster or better, but ultimately it doesn't affect us. We could not say anything.
I think if
Any
it's
of those things.
voluntary.
Voluntary, but to me,
like-
voluntary is the key word. It's not
It's
like,
not eminent domain.
yeah, it's not like they're coming in and they're taking people's homes, it's
So
voluntary,
this is
so.
like the flood prone areas of Queens, you know, where when we had that hurricane, you know, people died in unregulated basement apartments. So I think it's totally acceptable if those people want to be able to sell
Agree.
that home and go somewhere else.
Yeah, and this
Everyone
seems
wants
to
it.
me a private
Yeah,
sale to the city, like it's
Yeah.
up to them if
and
they.
they already know they're in a danger zone, so if they wanna get out, they should be able to.
That's the one.
No, it could be. I mean, it's not,
It's not yet.
it's not yet, but it would be likely.
Nobody has to do anything, so.
Anyway, I think the key word, like Katie said, and I was gonna say, Roberta, is voluntary.
Mhm.
You know, that, because it says voluntary there, I think we're okay, if someone wants to do it,
Trigger a ULURP.
it shouldn't trigger a ULURP.
No ULURP.
Yeah, that's like a private, I would think, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
it is ultimately the city acquiring land,
Correct.
but I think the point that many people would make, particularly the resiliency community, is, there's a compelling public purpose to help these homeowners manage retreat out of flood-prone areas, and maybe that does not trigger a ULURP process for every individual home. Maybe there's a way to streamline that.
Yeah, like
I
if
mean,
you're for a district.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even the resiliency part, like that wouldn't, obviously, that's what we're interested in, but it wouldn't sway me, it's more the nature of the purchase, of the nature of the, it's voluntary, it's two entities, one private, one the city in this case, is coming to their own agreements, it shouldn't trigger you or
I think
each one.
the only thing to just confirm is that if say the city does voluntarily buy this, there's no ULURP. If the city were then to wanna use that land for something, that should definitely
different.
trigger a
Yeah.
ULURP, but that's a different scenario, that's not what this
This is,
Yeah.
right, Roberta, this is just the purchase of the
Yeah.
land.
Yes, and so I think we did have this discussion in Housing, Health, and Human Services, whether the city should be able to, for any number of compelling public purposes, that involved housing generally, but also parks and schools, should they just be able to, without a ULURP, acquire land? And I think that there were very mixed responses, but I think the point that is being made here is if the goal is simply managed retreat, and the goal is just not to have anything there, or to just have it be a place that could ultimately absorb some coastal flooding, wetlands, exactly, then maybe that's fine. Or the community feels that that is appropriate and that shouldn't trigger, 50 ULURPs for the nearby single family homes.
So I think we're in agreement. Again, anyone please pipe up if I'm wrong, that yes, the city should be able to offer, but I would make note voluntary is our key, for me, is a key word. And I'm glad they put that in there, because I'm surprised they even did. Sometimes they'll be like, should the city be able to offer buyouts of homes, but volunteer?
Yeah, the next point is, I think, what will
So
be
then,
more
yeah, the next
complicated.
point is, thank you, is should the city be able to acquire land for coastal resilience infrastructure without going through an ordinary ULURP? I would be dead set against that.
Yeah, because I wanna know the mechanism for acquiring that land.
Yeah, and
Does that
also,
include eminent domain?
yeah, and also this, I was writing this, I was talking to Joe, Roberta, and he brought up this question. He's like, but would encourage, he thought it would encourage private entities, I wrote this down, buying and selling land to the city and possibly potentially creating favoritism, like, like that whoever the mayor's friends are, they're gonna buy that land, they can sell their stuff. It just presents opportunities for political favors and abuse. It just opens it up.
I agree with this to one point. I guess if there is like a very tiny amount of like a tiny easement that like an industrial party or a peer owner like still owned in a waterfront scenario, it might be appropriate on those edge cases, but would likely not be in, cases where you're trying to do a full, entirely new project on that site.
Yeah.
My 2 cents.
So I would vote absolutely, I would vote no on this one. We should still have you if they're
Yeah.
gonna acquire, especially coastline land. I could be, unless you guys have a different opinion. No, okay, Roberta, we're pretty much unanimous in that. And we have one more, guys. One more. Should the city, oh no, I'm sorry, we have 2 more points. Should the city be able to offer revocable consent to non-adjacent property owners for the purpose of installing electric vehicle chargers on public streets and sidewalks? I know, so we have to separate, I know we have a letter on, in general, installing electric vehicle chargers, that we had great concern of that, and about sidewalk furniture, and if sidewalk space was the best use for this, it should be in kind of like lots or, off sidewalk. We had a discussion with the transportation committee, and then a letter came out of it. So this is, I don't think, and Roberta, correct me again, I don't think we're debating sidewalk charger, we're past that debate right now. I think the question is now the ease of putting them in, right, Roberta? Or
Yeah, and I perhaps if anyone would like to jump in here who has a deeper knowledge of like the revocable consent, but at this point, you effectively need consent from the adjacent property owner to install the infrastructure necessary for either roadbed or like sidewalk electric vehicle chargers. What I think the testimony has suggested before the commissioners is that it makes it difficult for the Department of Transportation to plan a network effectively of electric vehicle chargers. And so they are interested in a revocable consent process, which would allow, I guess, would basically create a default where there would be the ability to cite these things with the ability of the adjacent property owners to revoke consent at any point in time, as opposed to having to go to them and obtain permission for these.
It's like how they switched the zoning laws. Instead of having to get permission to do it, if they wanna do it, you can say, no, don't do it.
That is my understanding of the way revocable consents ultimately work. We can also note, maybe this has to be for a DOT, purpose, maybe there is some sort of agency like input or review, or maybe there does have to be some sort of, public review. I don't know what this looks like, but that is, it's certainly a conversation that came up before the commissioners.
Okay. I know Joe was saying that there was some sort of hearing about or discussion about this, at the city level, and I don't know if you were there, I don't know, I should find out what he was referring to. And he said this was one of the points that they were stressing, they're trying to push through, that they really are having some problems putting a network, like you said, the word you used, I think, Roberta, was a network of chargers.
Yeah, because they have to get permission from all these
Each little
people.
things, yeah.
Instead of being able to just do it, and if someone doesn't want it, they still have a mechanism to say no. I think that's the big thing. It's not, to me, this sounds like they're not making it so it's a done deal, you have no power. They're still allowing you to say no, it's just that they don't have to get your permission first. They can
Is that
say,
right?
we wanna
That's
do
right.
this, and you
Okay.
say no, and then it ends.
That is, to the best of my understanding, how this would work, and this is how I would describe what we envision in the letter,
Yeah.
if that is where the committee ultimately
Yeah, I
goes.
think that makes sense.
Okay.
I
So
did want
that's-
to share, Christine sent a comment. I feel like she is often a frequent flyer here. I don't see her, so I will share her comment, only because it is, I think, in a bit opposition. She indicated that it could lead to inappropriate placement of infrastructures on sidewalks in the absence of some sort of community or some sort of public review. And that it is contradictory to the way that we cite outdoor dining structures. And so that was, and I apologize to Christine if you wind up watching this and I butchered your comment. But I did want to add that because it is relevant. I'm not sure if TPC is gonna.
But it's not, isn't it like, so when they put bike racks in on the sidewalk, there's no public review? It's just, they just put them in? No, there's not.
Yeah, there is a difference between a bike rack and a charging station, though.
What?
I mean, the size,
A bike rack is
immovability.
an object with no power running to it, and a charging station would have.
No, but I'm talking about as far as sidewalk infrastructure, sidewalk space.
Well, this isn't really talking about sidewalk space, it's talking about
Oh, I thought
installing, like. To me, this speaks more to the
Installation
installation,
of it?
not the location.
I thought, well, it's both, right? Cause they,
It could be either streets or sidewalks. It's sort of agnostic as to that. It might be appropriate for us to raise that previously we have stated that we have not wanted to see these on sidewalks specifically and have the concern that this
well,
could
that's
lead
what I
to
was
them
gonna say.
on sidewalks.
I think we understand the, like Katie said very well, like we understand that it's just going from no, like, that's fine for us, I think. But that we have stated that in general, our overall feeling is that it shouldn't be on sidewalks anyway, like. The best way is for fast charging stations in. I mean, in Manhattan, we don't have space, but in both, they have lots, like what they're trying to do is it's off street. Lots, and that's where it's easier for people to go and charge, they're not. I mean, I don't wanna get into level 2, level 3 here, but we could kind of a little bit rehash our letter. Saying, listen, we know you're talking about this, and we understand that and agree with that for the most part. But we have concerns about this in the first place, does that make sense? Okay. Which goes more according to what our language was in the first letter. Am I getting too am I weaving too many things in this? Or no? Roberta, you understand what I'm saying, right?
I think it's fine. My goal is, again, to make sure that we're capturing all of the potential concerns, even if we are ultimately supporting this, that, the concerns that came up are still captured. How do you preserve the sidewalk versus street bed question?
Correct, but we don't think each individual charger should have some sort of public review, right, or whatever is the process now.
I think that Christine was suggesting that it would be, it might be appropriate, in a context sort of comparable to like outdoor dining and the way that we approve those structures. I don't know if that is a sentiment shared by the committee. Obviously, I think they're certainly a bit different, but I do understand why there's a desire to have some sort of public.
Yeah, I think, I understand what that point, I just don't think it's comparable at all to outdoor dining, are these huge big structures that are in the road that could be feet and feet, you know, dozens of feet long.
Well, the question is, when they say revocable consent, does revocable consent inherently mean no public review?
I mean, my understanding is there's not a public review process for the siting of electric vehicle chargers as is. And the problem is really that like you need to go to the adjacent property owners. It's not that like there's some sort of public review process. It is that
Sorry, go ahead, Roberta. I was talking about, sorry, go ahead.
No. I mean, it is effectively that the permission there is very clunky. And so I think the city wants something, it appears that the city is looking for something that is more streamlined, where the adjacent property owner can still say no, but the initial permission is a little bit easier to.
Well, so already, if, say I own a building and I want to put a charger in front of my building on the sidewalk, I can ask DOT, I can give them permission and say, hey, build this here. That's the existing process.
I think.
Because it's saying it's from asking permission to build to building, but if you don't want it, you say no.
But DOT, the buildings aren't putting the chargers on the sidewalk, DOT is.
But property owners have to give permission for them to build it there.
Or if you're an EV charging company and you wanna build a charging station there, like what is the process? Doesn't necessarily have to be the building plan.
I think it.
Which is still, you have to get a revocable consent, but I think what this is asking is this non-adjacent property owner, right? Which seems to be.
The person next,
right?
Right.
So they're adding, I mean, I'm more in favor of like more flexibility than less, and it seems to be adding another player into.
So you don't wanna add the other player into review, more flexibility,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Roberta, you got that little note too, that nugget?
Yeah. That ultimately we're looking for greater levels of flexibility here.
But what's interesting is they're saying to offer the revocable consent to non-adjacent property owners. So if I were building it in front of my property and my neighbor said, I don't like what you're doing, you have to stop. Isn't that a hindrance?
That's how I read it.
So my understanding is that
a little too confusing.
That's what I was looking at.
that the city, just the charter rules that ultimately govern whether or not revocable consents can be offered do not allow the city to offer revocable consent for EV chargers at all.
And I think in general, as again, we brought this up in HHHS, the city charter is the constitution for the city. It is what creates the governing document of how our city functions. And historically, it has not been changed very often, but in most recent history, it's being changed very fast. And I don't know that there's any reason to add something to our city charter about e-vehicle charging.
But we're past that, Katie, but we're past.
But that's
gonna be on that, that's what they're doing, so we have to comment on it, right? I mean.
Yeah, so my comment is that I don't think that this is something that needs to be part of the charter. It can be dealt with in another way. Can it be dealt with in another way?
I think we should, I think.
It's not, they didn't like contemplate like alternative pathways, but that I guess revocable consent and encumbrances, I believe it's in the report, council member Brewer testified that these were challenges to ultimately like
Yeah.
making improvements for the public right of way. I think it may have related to chargers, but it may have been larger than that. And so I think that we're having this conversation in the context of EV chargers, and that's how the
It's
report
revocable. Yeah. Sorry.
presented it, but that this is a bit of
You know
a
what?
larger conversation.
Roberta, can you thread the needle on this one?
Just a little bit.
It's really different because, I mean, realistically, the mayor is using the Charter Review Commission to push through legislation that he can't get otherwise. He's pushing through things that he wants, so I think there's a gray area. Because
Sure.
again, this is
Well,
the
you'll
governing
vote-
document
you'll have
of
to
the
vote on it.
city.
Yeah, you're gonna vote on it.
But
It's
people
not-
are stupid and they don't understand what this means.
No,
And this is like important stuff for people who actually understand how the city functions.
I think they're trying to get the climate stuff easier, all around, easier to put in, because environmentalists are pushing it.
It
I
sounds
mean, that's what I
to me,
hear.
It just feels to me too specific for a governing document.
it sounds to me like there's no overall standard for charging stations on the streets. And that's a complicated issue. What's the size? What's the speed? What's the location? That doesn't exist. I mean, if you wanna put a charging station in front of your property, which you.
But why does that have to be dealt with in the
Why-
charter?
It's revocable
So
consent.
here's, I guess, one example, section 371 of the charter sets out notice and hearing requirements for revocable consents and franchises. It requires applicants to publish notice twice in a daily newspaper and in a weekly newspaper, and send separate notices to any affected borough presidents, community boards, council members, and has a number of public hearings. And so you might say, do I need to do this for every single charger? Maybe not. Maybe you need to do it
Yeah.
for every XYZ number of chargers.
That point is talking about streamlining to prevent duplicative notice. It's not saying to get rid of notice altogether, it's to streamline the notice so you're not
That's
having
the
to do it in the
next one, yeah.
paper and do all that, well, that's what she was just saying.
Yeah,
I think that's very different than the revocable consent issue with the chargers. I personally don't feel that we should put a point in our governing document that's that specific. It just doesn't
So-
feel like that's what makes sense.
it's gonna be voted on.
If I connect these two, I think that the whole point is if you have to do all of these things for every single revocable consent, so every single charger, maybe that's not a effective way to create a network of chargers. And we're using the example, but perhaps there are other examples of this process, and it might be appropriate if you could batch them, if they have like a connected public purpose or in a defined geographic area, and that would allow agencies to help bring about a more connected network in this particular instance for chargers, but it may have applications elsewhere as well.
I think that's the thing, like, they're using this as the example, but it may have other applications. We don't know what those applications are. I totally agree that streamlining the notifications and getting rid of duplicative hearings, that makes a lot of sense. That makes everything easier. But again, it's, the point about the chargers is confusing, and it seems like they're using chargers as a very politically charged topic. Are they purely talking about chargers? Or are they talking about other things, and the charger is just an example? What else can this be applied to? We might get an example that it's applied to something that we feel, no, you shouldn't do.
But I think that's why, that is the answer to your question before. I think they're being very specific because they only want it to be for this specific reason. The revocable consent, they wanna change it they don't wanna, right, Roberta, they don't wanna change it for everything or like, they can't change the charter of
It
revocable
sounds
consent.
like it's unclear.
It's.
So, I mean, this is a report
It's
discussing all the findings.
It's very specific.
I mean, here, this is very specific, but ultimately, this is just a report of all their findings. And it might be appropriate to say, if this has broader implications, we're concerned about that, but we think that we
Yes.
understand that it might have a
I
compelling
think
use
if we
here.
include that, the broader implications, because again, I just in general do not feel comfortable making all these very specific things in again, a governing document that should be, I think, more.
But we don't want it to be broad, right? We want it to be specific. We don't want them to have the leeway to revoke, to offer
I'm
revoke.
just saying that reviewing the charter may not be the vehicle for this thing at all. But I'm fine with, you know, if it's a matter.
I understand what you're saying.
You're saying you might be
You're saying it's
uncomfortable with
too
others.
specific for this document,
Exactly.
and we're saying the specificity, or some are saying specificity actually helps protect protect the. Anyway, yes.
Yeah, and as long as if they're not gonna start applying it to other things, and this was just one example,
Right.
and then they don't tell us the other examples. It just feels a little. I
Does
don't
that
have
make
enough
sense,
information.
Roberta? We kind of do want, you know, like you said, Roberta, not every single one should be every single charge. Like you said, if you group them, but it still should be under some sort of review. But whatever, you know, whatever you said was wonderful.
So there's interest in maintaining some sort of public process. This is something that we heard a lot in Housing, Health,
Yeah.
and Human Services. Even when we
Right.
want to streamline things, we want there to be public involvement. And so that can come through in the letter as well. And just to note that this is a very narrow discussion, and you know, we have concerns about it being applied more broadly.
Right, I think that's right. Is that right, Katie?
Sounds
Are you
good.
comfortable with that? Okay. I think I think you are, right? Okay. I think the last one is what Katie was saying, you guys are saying, should the process of offering revocable consents and franchises be streamlined to remove the typically notice and hearing requirements? And I think we agree, yes. Matt says yes. Katie? Anyone else? Yes.
I'm happy with Katie's.
I'm happy if Katie's happy. So I think we're good with what do you think, Roberta? That's our last one, but what do you think on that point?
I mean, I think that these are all helpful comments and discussions that help tease out the concerns. What I will also say is, you know, there are, if there are things that were not captured, happy to take them into account. Individuals are also welcome to testify at either in person or virtually. I think the next hearings are going to be June 23rd and July 7th. And so if any of this is appealing or unappealing to you and you would like to make your voice heard, you may also independently testify in this.
Okay, so we don't have to vote on that, right? We could just give you, because we're gonna vote on it later, but I do want to do I do wanna talk about first of all, sorry, old business, new business, anything anyone wants to bring up? Anything? I don't have anything, but anything? No, okay. The next thing was, can we have a motion on, I was writing notes throughout the Hudson River Park presentation of, I mean, it's mostly very positive, you know, like, we like this, we like this. There were a few things we just wanted you to look at, you know, a little more, talk about the beer garden possibility, I know the peer, kind of the peer eye, comparison, that we both agree with.
Lemonade.
I'm putting blueberry lemonade in the.
But it sounded like, you know, they have a certain deadline. This letter may not even get out before the deadline, and they didn't say they needed the
Yeah, no.
letter, so I don't.
No, but I think we should know what we.
So like
Heard,
send a
and-
letter to the trust and
Yeah.
thank them for presenting.
Correct,
Yeah.
and this is what we wanna see in your design, we
Yeah.
like this, we don't, you know, we're concerned with. I think Matt brought up a very good concern about the pedestrians and going into that area, I think we should talk about that in the letter. Anything else?
But it won't be out until July.
No, this is not.
This is
the agency.
It's a regular WPE letter that we're just gonna, like we would do normally.
This is just thanking the park for presenting and keeping us notified. This isn't sending it to whatever
Someone else,
review
that's
agency that they are going before.
Yeah.
Still wouldn't be out until the end of July. If you want a board approval on it.
But it
Oh,
doesn't matter when it goes out. This is not a time sensitive letter, 'cause it's just. It's a letter to
No,
the park, thanking them for coming and presenting.
Eric and everyone, this is what we're concerned about, we're concerned about this, this and this, we like the rain garden, but the stormwater, we wish everything you, the regular, like a regular WPE letter.
You're not talking to me about what our process is. Our process for letters like even the one you're describing, they get approved by the board at the end of the session.
Right, it's what we do.
That won't happen until July
That's
24th.
fine.
That's fine, this is not time sensitive.
They don't need a letter from us for them.
Oh, okay. July 24th.
The time sensitive thing was for another agency, we're not writing the letter to that agency.
Thank you so much for being here. We really enjoyed hearing all this information about yada, yada, yada. And don't forget the solar lighting.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, all for that? All against? Present not eligible? Only abstain, okay, good. The second one, does anyone mind if someone can do this? I do, and this probably could be administrative, but it probably could be administrative. I do wanna, well, let me ask you, I do wanna write a letter with Parks, just asking them what their procedure, if, what is it when they close fields? Not just at Reynolds Island, because it's not our district, but though the people here are affected by that. But their process of closing fields when it rains, grass fields, turf fields, does anyone, I think that could be administrative, but right, or no? Ginny, can that be
I
administrative?
think that sounds,
I'm sorry, could you repeat the letter?
It was to Parks, just asking them the procedure of closing the athletic fields, permitted athletic fields, grass or turf, or both.
Well, it sounds like they don't really close
They don't
the
close
grass.
it, but I just want.
The turf, they
Yeah,
close
the
the
turf, they
grass.
close the grass. And why, and what are the mechanism, like, what is the kind of the bullet points the checklist they do to close it? Would that be a voted on letter or would that be administrative
that
letter?
sounded to me
That sounds like an administrative,
Yeah,
because
he
it's not really
gave
like,
the reasoning.
it's not really like for a
No, he
vote.
said he didn't know what they're,
Well, he said the reasoning of why they closed it.
yes, I want it in the, yeah. Yes. I wanna know why, I wanna know who decides, like what. It's I know it doesn't affect you guys, but it's a huge problem, like a big problem for some of us.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's mostly informational, so it could be administrative.
I agree with that.
Okay, administrative, then we don't vote on it.
But yeah, I mean, it's information we want. There's no reason not to ask them for it.
Okay,
And we support asking for that information.
okay, so what are we coming out of here with 2 administratives? And 1 letter? Wasn't there another administrative? Yes, and I voted, you said we didn't have to vote,
The thing, yeah.
remember? I said I would vote on it, and I said, did we have to vote on it? You said, oh, asking for the combined,
Oh, the DEP.
yes,
The cumulative thing, yes.
okay. So,
2 information letters, one about turf, one about grass and one about cumulative.
cumulative effects of environmental projects and adjustments,
Right.
okay, and then 1 regular letter.
And a thank you letter, that will be, there's no rush to write that.
Right. Okay, anyone, motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
No, I think somebody should raise another issue, so.
Any second? Raymond, thank you.
We're out.
Thank you, everybody, that's it.
After we adjourn, I wanna say one thing.
Oh, hold on.
No,
Hold on.
you gotta put the recording on.
No, I would turn it to, hold on. Okay, thanks, Jenny. Roberta, thank you so much for your work on that. I'll connect with you, but thank you. And good luck up there. Bye,
Thanks.
Jenny,
Bye.
thank you.
Jiffy
Have a
gas.
good one.
Wait, hold on. Can you shut the recording?
It's not.
Sally has stuff to talk about.
It's not.
No, it's on.
Just leave the Zoom.
Wait, let me just go off the live stream also once.